Welcome to Liberty Unfiltered. We've had a packed show today.
There's a lot going on today.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. So I'm Keith. You're Hillary. We're back. You didn't think we'd make it this far, did they? Two conservative people going head to head with some liberals. It's been fun.
I was hopeful, but more than that, being able to have conversations, find common ground, but more importantly, getting the truth out there has been, especially today, has just been mind blowing.
Well, and I'm going to be honest with you. You did an interview today, and we are going to air it during the live show today.
Right.
You did an interview today, and I want to tell you something on air. You did great.
Oh,
you did fantastic because I wasn't there. You did fantastic.
Thank you.
I was in studio, but I wasn't there, and I think it worked out great. I think you did great, and I think it's informative. Tyler came to me, and he was like, "Man," he was like, "I understand that you talk a lot of politics, Keith." He was like, "But when there's something new like this," he goes, "It was amazing." So it was a story of a story, and things that are going on are even more impressive. And I don't necessarily mean impressive in a good way.
Yeah,
they're impressive.
Things are going on here.
Right.
It's happening here at home.
Right, backyard.
Yeah. Well, and we really, with Annie today, we just scratched the surface.
Sure.
Like if we went through absolutely every single story, every single incident, every single battle that she had to fight, we would have been talking for hours. And her fight's not over.
Yeah.
She's up for re-election this fall, and it's really just beginning, because her involvement has really sparked kind of like a revolution over in Mentor. So that's going to be exciting to see.
That is going to be exciting to see.
Yeah.
And then here in about 3 minutes, who do we have with us, Tyler? Oh, you don't have a mic. No, I did it on purpose. Jack Hall, Sheriff Jack Hall is going to be. There was an article wrote in the Chronicle Telegram, which, if you're not familiar with Lorain County, how can I say this nicely? It's a newspaper. I don't really look. I'm not into newspapers. I haven't read a newspaper in God knows how long, probably 20 years. So, do people still get their news from newspapers anymore? Is that a thing?
I would hope not. I would hope people. I mean, honestly,
I would hope
can't
not.
trust any sort of news lately. And at a local level, the stakes aren't so high, so the agendas are pushed a little bit more covertly.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I would hope not, but I mean, as we know, they do.
So, and here's the thing too: is we get our news, or we're supposed to have unbiased news.
Right.
That hasn't happened in 80 years in this country. Everybody's been in has a political agenda to push.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes out wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes and they don't care whose lives they ruin. They don't care what's going to happen. And especially in Lorain County politics, people like to play house of cards.
Yeah.
And I'm really confused on why. I'm really confused on why we play house of cards here. He is there. And this, I'm not just talking about the Democrats either.
Everybody.
It's everybody.
There's so much money involved that it's kind of gross. Everybody says follow the money.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that in a county,
this big?
Yeah, this big that
or where everybody knows everybody.
Right. But still, the amount of money that that fuels, it's disappointing. You don't want to believe it, but it's true.
I mean, my problem is that if you're going to do that, right? If you're going to make hit pieces and you're going to twist the truth, right now we have so many different, I guess, ways to fact check now. Yeah. We don't need to go through the news. You're going to podcasts. You're going to different blogs. You're going to different vlogs. You're doing that kind of thing. You're going to the Rumble shows. You're going to the truth shows. You don't need these mainstream media outlets anymore. And I think they're starting to know that.
Well, and social media makes people so much more accessible. When it comes to, reaching out to, to the sheriff or fact checking, you can go straight to you shoot them a DM and it goes right to the source.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Straight to the source.
Yeah.
And then you let them and you ask them the questions and you let them stop spinning it. Basically, let's have some news. I can't say we're non-biased because I am very biased. I am a very big Trump supporter. I am a very biased human being, but that's okay because there's other people who are not as biased and there's other people who are just as biased on the left side. The problem is when we can no longer have a conversation about it, right?
Right.
Are you so unbiased that that facts don't matter? Because if that's the case, then you're doing life wrong.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, and there's also a difference between being biased and then also having, data and documents and things like that
Correct.
to back up your point. I don't
Correct.
think that's necessarily a bias, Keith. So,
that's
as
fair.
much
That's fair.
but
Facts are
well, but it's a label that we stick on everybody that disagrees with you. Oh, you're biased.
That's true. That is true.
Because the conversations just aren't happening.
Actually, I never really looked at it like
Well,
that
yeah.
before, honestly.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're gonna get to
The source.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the source. We're gonna get to Sheriff Jack Hall. Sheriff, are you with us?
I'm with you. And Hillary, if this is House of Cards, I want to know who the Doug Stamper is. So.
Nose goes.
It's Tyler. He's so behind the scenes. We don't even know.
Very good.
Well, I want to thank you for first of all, for coming on. I really, really, really appreciate it. There was what I felt personally was an issue that without explanation could have went very bad in the court of public opinion. I feel like they did it on purpose. Now, I'm not gonna say that, but I feel like they did it on purpose because it's been a long time, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's been a long time since we had a constitutional sheriff in this part of Ohio. It's been it's been a long time. It's been a very, very long time. So, and I don't know if they were not happy with that. Of course, they're not happy with that. But at the same time, you're a sheriff for the people, by the people, and that speaks volumes. So the headline, let's just get into it. The headline, the way they tried to spin the story was basically they were going to say you're not going to follow Trump's orders. You're going to let these people stay here. You're not worried about ICE. If ICE comes into you, ICE comes here, you're going to tell them no. That's not true, is it?
No, not true at all. And the Chronicle reporter who wrote that article, the original question was in regards to the rhetoric that was the topic of the day, was regards to the president enlisting local law enforcement to do arrest on behalf of ICE.
Okay.
And this has been a hot topic really since President Clinton. We have had so many different variations of immigration policy that have taken place, since Clinton up through Obama, through President Trump's first presidency, and then through the Biden administration. And one of the other radio broadcasters out there who I talked to, I said, one of the biggest frustrations with law enforcement is that when we've dealt with illegal immigrants in the country, this could be from a traffic stop to a domestic violence arrest to going into a restaurant to answer a complaint on something, we come across somebody and they become a suspect of ours. Now, it's not because we're looking for anybody because of the color of their skin or the way they talk or anything else. It all is a matter of an issue of how did we come across them? Right. So therefore, generally, we're conducting some type of investigation, which gives us the reason to run them through a leads database, NCIC database, which gives us information. When we do that,
but what then comes? I'm sorry, you would do that regardless of who you pulled over. You do that for everybody. Like
any person, yes.
You're going to do the same exact thing.
We're going to run that on everybody. We need to make sure that they have a valid driver's license. We need to make sure that they don't have warrants out for their arrest. And so anyways, a lot of times what we've had happen over the years is that we will get something pop up on the screen that says, hey, we have a hit detainer, from Immigration and Customs Enforcement or INS back in the day. And what I explained to this other radio personality today is that you can take a dart, throw it at a map in Northeast Ohio, pick any community that dart lands on, call dispatch, get me any cop that's been on the job for 10 years, ask them if they've had an issue with ICE or INS about picking up somebody that they had stopped on the side of the road. The issue is that, well, no, let them go. Let them go. No, we're not going to pick them up. Or can you hold them until tomorrow and we'll come and pick them up tomorrow? Wow. And the issue with that is that we can't detain somebody on a ICE detainer because most of the times, as we've learned, they are civil infractions that take place. And as a matter of fact, when I spoke with the reporter, one of the things that came to my mind is policies and procedures for Lorain County Sheriff's Office, which we're in the process of updating and rewriting right now. But we have our policy 414, which is our immigration policy. In that policy, it specifically states that we have to contact the federal agency, which is DHS ICE, that we would in this case, and find out, is this a civil detainer or is it a criminal detainer? That's in our policy. The irony is we subscribe to a company called Lexipol. Lexipol is a company that we utilize to write our policies and procedures to make sure that we mitigate liability on behalf of the community, so we don't come up with something crazy that we're doing that's going to sue the law enforcement agency and then put the public in a situation where they have to pay out.
Okay.
Here's the fun fact. We're one of 10,000 law enforcement agencies in North America that use Lexipol. There's 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States, which means 55% of us use the exact same policy company to generate our policy. So the policy that the Lorain County Sheriff's Office is working on is the exact same policy that 10,000 other law enforcement agencies in the United States is working on, that we do not arrest on a civil detainer for ICE. It's a civil infraction. We're not allowed to make an arrest.
Sure.
So in my experience, and also clarifying with 2 ICE agents that have recently retired, and I'm talking retired within the last 3 to 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Both of them have admitted to me that the majority of their cases that they work on are civil detainers. And so let me explain real quick in case the audience doesn't understand this in regards to immigration law. You have 3 levels in regarding immigration law. The first level is that when somebody enters the country and they're found to be in the country illegally, we contact Immigration Customs Enforcement, and they do what's called a civil detainer, and they go civil process to deport them out of the country. We can't arrest them. This would be the same thing like if somebody was writing a bar, a liquor citation to appear in liquor commission to have done their license, so to speak. So therefore, the sheriff is not engaged in that. There's only one entity that does that, and that's ICE, that engages in that activity. So say, for example, go through the process, they tell a person that they have to leave the country. The person either doesn't leave or they come back in on a re-entry. And here's the other part that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
The re-entry into the country in which they come in, and it's been determined they bypassed an immigration checkpoint. They lied to get into the country. They did something in order to come in here. A lot of people don't understand this. That is only punishable by 6 months in jail. It's a federal misdemeanor to do that. And a lot of people don't get this.
Wow.
Now, it's a misdemeanor. 6 months in jail is the maximum fine for somebody being in the country for avoiding a checkpoint or anything else. So, for example, somebody comes across Lake Erie into Lorain County, into the Port of Lorain, Avon Lake, Sheffield, Lake Vermilion, and they fail to register. You know, you've seen those little phones, on the boat docks and all that. They fail to register. That is a civil action, or if you can prove that they failed to register, it's a misdemeanor. Now, the federal law allows state and local law enforcement to arrest or to detain somebody suspected of violating immigration law when 2 specific things happen. Number 1, we have to suspect that they're in the country illegally. And there's various ways of that. Maybe we made a traffic stop. Maybe we found somebody engaged in some type of particular activity that we walked up to them, in a strange situation. We did a walk and talk. We asked them about their identification, and they volunteered it, even though that they didn't have to give it to us. And we find out they don't have any valid green card. Their green card is expired, their work visa, whatever else. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is an and, not an or. Number 2 is that we have to be able to prove that the person that is standing in front of us at that time has been convicted of a felony offense in any federal court or state court in the United States and was deported from the United States based on that felony offense and have re-entered the country. Here's the problem. The courts in the district next to us, which take Illinois, Chicago area and all that, they have ruled that a state and local law enforcement officer cannot make that arrest unless they see the person re-enter the country. Well, Hillary and Keith, there's only one spot that we can do that in Lorain County, and that's if we're out on our boat on the lake and we see somebody cross the international border from Canada coming into Lorain County.
Right.
Other than that, we can't make an arrest. So when I told the Chronicle reporter about this, I said, if ICE were to enter a warrant into the system,
Sure.
Say, for example, they know somebody entered the country illegally. They're conducting an investigation which somebody has re-entered and they're trying to violate them and get them deported again. If they enter a warrant, I, as the sheriff, have the right to take that federal warrant to the Lorain County Court of Common Pleas because I am the administrator for the Court of Common Pleas. Every sheriff in their county is the administrator for their court. I can take that federal warrant, file it in the Lorain County Court of Common Pleas, and then we can serve that warrant. The reason why ICE doesn't have warrants that they do it this way, because all the investigators that I spoke to said the majority of the cases they handle are civil violations.
So there's
There's
no
no
warrant
warrant.
to begin with.
So your guys' hands are tied no matter what. We're not talking about just saying, oh, we're not going to follow, whatever. You're saying that we need, your hands are too tight.
We have no legal authority.
Yeah.
And so therefore, so when we look at this and with President Trump coming back into office,
Yeah.
you could ask almost any cop in Northeastern Ohio, the scenario I started off with, they stop somebody and they're like, oh, let them go. Let them go. We have been people letting them go for years with no responsibility or accountability of taking them into custody to deport them back out of the country. So therefore, what happens is that when they asked me specifically about the 287G program, which is we have somebody in custody in our jail, and they said, well, would you cooperate with ICE regarding it? And I said, yes, but when we contact ICE and say, hey, Jim Jones is ready to be released tomorrow, Friday at 9:00 in the morning. Now, guys, when Jim Jones gets booked into the jail and he gets fingerprinted, the ICE database is connected with the FBI CJIS database, and they know immediately Jim Jones has been booked into our jail. We're going to get a phone call, and they're going to say, hey, you have who we believe is an illegal immigrant in the custody of your jail. We're going to send you the detainer. So when he gets out, we want called so we can take him into custody. Wow. Currently, up to right now, before President Trump took office, we would get a call from ICE, and they would be like, hey, we understand you're releasing them at 9 a.m. Friday, but you know what? We can't get down there at that time. So you know what? It's convenient for us to pick them up Tuesday. Is that good for you? No.
You can't do
Jim
that.
Jones. Yeah, Jim Jones, who has served his time in our jail, say it's for OVI, his sentence finishes at 9:00 on Friday. Wow. We can't hold him beyond 9:00 on Friday because then if we keep him in custody pursuant to ICE's civil detainer request, we have committed a warrantless arrest on the person who is in our jail, and we could be held civilly liable for that we held somebody against their will when they were scheduled to be released at 9:00 in the morning. Now, what I fully expect to happen after President Trump has been put back into office is that we're going to pick up that phone, contact Immigration and Customs Enforcement and say, Jim Jones is being released at 9:00. And I think you've seen a new day in the United States that ICE is going to be at our jail at 8:45 before he gets out. And therefore we can release him and he goes to the custody of ICE. But the problem is we have no legal authority right now to detain these people longer than what our state charges have had them in custody.
And that is miles away from what that article was trying to do. I mean, I'm just gonna be, I read it about 6 times because I'm going, what in the hell are they doing? Like, why would they say we're not, for one, I really hate Lorain County politics. Man, do I hate it. But we have a sheriff, a constitutional sheriff who just,
you're following the rules.
You're following the rules.
Right.
And we can't, as much as there is so much hate and everything, it's dangerous. Well, it's always been dangerous to be a cop. It always has been. But now it's even more dangerous in today's political climate to even want to be a police officer. And for you to come in and have to run and, deal with a campaign, I'm sure. And I watched your campaign very closely. And to have the position you're in and still getting attacked for it. Why are we doing this to people who are just trying to follow law? Because I'm telling you right now, if you didn't follow the law and you did what we all want you to do, just arrest these people. But if you didn't follow the law, how many articles would have been wrote about that? Oh, unconstitutional sheriff. Oh,
he's incapable, incompetent, doesn't even know how to do his own job. All of it. Well, and that's the thing that blows my mind is that everything that you just said. Now, I'm not a scholar, but I was able to very clearly understand that what you were saying was, if I could, I would, but I can't. Not that I won't.
Right. That's exactly what he just said. That can't be. you can't twist and turn that. You could try, and they did try, but that's why when I read the article, and I think I immediately reached out to you as I was finishing the last sentence on the article, and I'm like, I gotta talk to him. Like, I gotta find out what's going on, because it's getting dangerous out here. I have 4 kids. You have a family. We're all a little worried about what's going on.
Yeah.
Can you go to the mall anymore? There isn't a mall, but can you go to these places anymore and feel safe with your family? Well, no, a lot of people can't. But we have a sheriff finally who is here to protect the people, and you're going to try to smear him before he has a chance to say anything. No, as conservatives, as Republicans of the true party, of conservatives and Republicans, we have to come together and give him a chance to say it's a liberal hit piece, man. Like, we are trying, you are doing your best. And you even said, as Trump starts to unfold more, I want to say laws, as he starts to settle in a little bit to his seat, I think you're going to be able to see. You're right. I think ICE will be here at 8:45, waiting to get these people, because a new tide has come. I mean, it wasn't even a red wave; it was a tsunami.
Right.
Like, to be honest, and it happened here in Ohio too. So, I mean, I am very grateful that you came on there, and you even taught me some things that I didn't know today. Thank you for honestly clarifying everything up, that what, how they said they try to spin it on you, and I think it was just disgusting how they
simply asked the question, would we affect an arrest based on that? And the question is, no, we can't.
Right.
And we don't have the legal authority to do that. And so when I saw the headline on there, I'm like, wow, that's eye-opening. That's the way that I describe the, headline that was on there. But then again, I was there during the interview. So when I read the article and went through the entire article, I'm like, all right, that was fair. Considering, everything that we told them.
Sure.
And then the issue comes down to now is education of the public. And one of the questions I was asked today, they had the mass arrest in Texas regarding, the gang members and everything else down there. And the question was, well, those were ICE detainers. I'm like, no, they were not ICE detainers. They had criminal warrants for gang related activity, that those targets were involved in that investigation. And, my only fear is when we look at recent legislation and that was passed, and it's like, hey, if there's a theft, a petty theft or a burglary or something else like that, then ICE is going to take custody of these people.
Sure.
I just hope, as your county sheriff, that doesn't go too far, because if we have a situation which we have a county resident or visitor that's a victim of crime, that person needs to be held accountable and stand for that crime.
Correct.
And they don't get to be deported and not be able to serve their time or be held accountable, to that crime. Now, if they're going to bond out and ICE wants to do us a favor by keeping that person in custody before they stand trial, that's going to be up to whatever the new federal immigration laws are going to state. I think we're going to get help from the president to be able to do that. Yeah. But currently, right now, we do not have the legal authority to do what is being purported by the media that we have the ability to do.
But that's not your fault. That's not the sheriff's department's fault. That you guys are just following the laws. You're enforcing the laws the best you can, because let's
that's
just
the
be
job of being a sheriff.
but let's just
literally the job.
Yeah, well, let's just be honest. There's so much crap going on where you guys have to defend yourselves anyways with legal citizens. It's hard to arrest anybody without having, especially if they did commit a crime. Let's just be honest. These people, we lost it when you were able to sue McDonald's for hot coffee.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Now you're suing sheriffs look at all of, and then you're getting protested. Oh dear God. If you arrest somebody of color, you're done. You're protested. Yep. We're at a very,
we're demanding body cam footage, and
we're body cam footage. And listen, it's okay to, I don't want to say question police officers' motives, but it is okay to be a watchdog. It is okay to say, hey, look, we have these laws, but the only thing is, when you have a conservative sheriff, you have to watchdog less. And we appreciate that, because he was open and honest. We can do these arrests, we can do these things, but the law is not allowing us to do what everybody's begging us to do. Right. That's not your fault. That's not
just give me a legal court detainer and just give me a warrant.
Yeah.
And we can do our job. Yes.
Well, exactly. And I feel like this was it was a classic, like, bait and switch. Like, they asked you the question, maybe they didn't like the answer, and then decided to throw a fit. And that is just, I'm on your side there, Keith. I really think that this was done intentionally. But I think so too. What we found out not too long ago is what's ironic about this is that there was a lot of attention. I don't think that the goal of the piece was served on behalf of the Chronicle.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
people were outraged, and to the point where, did you say that you received a phone call or you got something from the Chronicle where they weren't rescinding, but they were going to clarify?
They're going to follow up.
They're
Yes,
going to
on the
follow up.
story.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And again, perception is 9/10 of everything, that goes on in society. I was the one that was interviewed, and when I read the story, when it came out in the newspaper, I'm like, all right, it was fair, because I'm the one that was there, during the interview.
Right.
But then again, when you have other people that read something or they take a look at it, or especially the headline, and I even made a comment about eye-opening headline that was on there. You watch the social media content, and that was like a little sociological experiment for me last night when you read all the commentary that goes on. And believe me, running for office, you get it all, when you see this.
Open that door.
And right. And we said, wow, there's a lot of misinterpretation of what goes on. And again, whatever the intent of the author of the story was, I don't think we'll ever know. But again, being there, giving the story, and knowing what I know about immigration law, okay, it's a fair piece.
Right.
Those of us that don't know about immigration law look at it and say, whoa, hold on a minute. He's not going to work with ICE, and he's not going to do the job, and he's not going to protect the community. And that's completely not.
That's dangerous, to post things like that. But in addition to that, like, there are so many things that I'm sure that you could be doing with your time instead of having to clarify something like this. And we rely on, we rely on the newspapers to be fair and to report in a way that the average person understands, because that's the point of news, right? Because not everybody has a law degree or went through the police academy and all of those things to just automatically know exactly what you're talking about. So as far as, it being fair, yeah, okay. But that's not what we need to be informed.
Sure.
And Hillary, to your point, yeah, you were talking about biased journalism. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but my major in college was journalism and psychology.
I knew as soon as you asked if I had StreamYards, I knew you were serious at that point. I was like, he knows what he's doing.
They picked on the wrong sheriff.
They did.
And I've been a member of the Ohio Bar Association since '96 as well as a paralegal.
Oh, wow.
So when you look at all of this, and we had a situation happen during the campaign in which somebody made a comment about both sheriff candidates, and one of the county newspapers reported on that comment. Now, what you're supposed to do as a journalist is that you are supposed to call the people that the comment is about to ascertain if the comment that was made about the other person is true. Is it false? What is your feeling on it? That article appears in that certain publication's front page the next day. And then our campaign actually had to issue a statement that the person who made that comment was completely false in what they were saying. And then that reporter, I'm sure, had to talk with their editor, and that editor had questions. Did you not reach out to the candidates to ask them if they made these comments or not? But when you look at news today, and this all started when 24-hour news came on. We always got the news when I was growing up. It was dinner time, the 11 o'clock news, and that was it. We got news going all the time. Everybody now has to be first to get the story out. And when I was on the phone with somebody today, they were like, hey, can we get you on the radio, tomorrow? I said, no, I'm going to be on at 6 o'clock tonight at a podcast. You guys got the first crack at this because Keith was the first one to reach out.
Thank you.
And so that's why we did this. And
I appreciate that. And honestly, it was the conversation. For one, when I reached out to you, I thought, man, this conversation is literally going to go one or two ways. This guy's going to completely ignore me, or he's going to say, okay, your concerns are right, or your concerns are validated. Let's chat. And that's what you did.
Or send an email or a letter to my secretary.
Oh yeah, send something. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then once we talked, I remember I got off the we chatted. As soon as we were done, I looked at Tyler and I said, well, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And Tyler goes, did you just say you were wrong? I was like, I did. I was like, I think I'm wrong.
Did we record that? Is that on camera?
Oh, hell no. I said,
so you had to admit to Doug Stamper you were wrong.
I did. Yes. Yep. I was like, man, I am Doug Stamper. I am wrong. And Tyler goes, well, what are you going to do? I said, I think the only thing to do is to ask him to clarify to come on the show and clarify it, because when you read that article again, you go, I voted for this guy and he's going to let these illegals walk all over us. And then you
Yeah.
read the article and you're like, okay,
No.
no, that's not what's going to happen. And then once she's, as this setting, in this setting, you're able to clearly explain what's going on. And I think that's what we need in this country. I'm a Republican. Am I a Republican? I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
And we can't have discussions anymore. And even though we could have been this could have been a very different topic, depending on how you answered us, and the fact that you are trying to do your best with the resources you have.
Yeah. And the
With-
limitations.
And the limitations. It's
the red
really
tape, all of it.
it's the limitations of red tape. That's not your fault. That's like blaming, a construction worker for something that they don't they might not be able to get a permit. Well, it's not their fault.
Right.
It's the government red tape that's in there. And I'm very glad you were able to come in and at least educate a little bit of people on what you have to do with inside the limitations of your own law.
When you responded so
Right.
quickly, I mean, and I think that's really important for people to know. Like, Keith reached out
Within
and
minutes.
the sheriff of Lorain County responded within minutes
Literally
to
minutes.
to a stranger.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? That's aired live. No questions
Yeah.
were asked,
No.
prior to, like, you could have been set up for God knows what.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
here you are ready to
right.
go. I mean, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, that speaks volumes
Oh,
about
yeah.
you as a leader. Because
Oh, yeah.
that's what you are as a sheriff. You are somebody that people look up to and expect to be, kind of like above that bar. So I appreciate that
Absolutely.
immensely.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. You have no idea. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this before we let you go? So that way.
No, and there's another side of the coin,
Okay.
on it too. I did a town hall meeting in Lorain last night for the second ward that they had. And so we were asked a question because, of course, the Chronicle ad or article was, on everybody's mind.
Right.
And they were talking about immigration issues. And I said, well, here's something that we learned during the campaign. We were, you monitor all of the community, Facebook pages and everything else.
Right.
There was a Facebook post that appeared, and I won't name it, but it was in the southern part of the county, and they were talking about immigration, and they were talking about the immigration problem in Lorain. And I'm like, all right. You look at Lorain, and what a lot of people don't understand, and they're going down there and they're talking about illegal, Hispanics, Mexicans, and they're putting all this into the narrative on the Facebook page. 82% of the Hispanic population in Lorain is Puerto Rican.
Right.
And I'm just sitting there shaking my head looking at this, and I'm like, folks, they're residents.
But that's
You
not
have-
new. That's not
Right.
new.
Oh.
When
No,
I
but you have a
Amherst years ago, like 5 years ago, that's not new.
Right.
No, not at all. But I sat and laughed because I said where this came out of in this community, especially with the large agricultural, industry that was going on. I said,
Right.
I'll bet you have a bigger immigration problem in your community in Southern Lorain County than exists in Lorain.
Oh, I guarantee it. Yeah.
So, so I told the
now
folks that last night.
Not a good look, you guys.
No, and I said the concern comes down to is I said, I am a law enforcement officer. We enforce the law. I'm administrator of the court. And I said, so therefore, if we have a warrant that directs us that we're going to go to this location and pick up this person for this crime, we are going to do it. The other issue comes to when you're talking about local law enforcement and you meet with groups like, and I used El Centro as an example in Lorain. El Centro represents, the Hispanic community in Lorain. They're one of the organizations that do. Believe me, if you establish that relationship, the first phone call they're going to make to you is they're going to say, hey, there's a house down here in this location. We've had 3 kids in our neighborhood buy guns from down there. We've had this going on down there. And as long as you're not over policing neighborhoods, and I gave an example of this too, these programs like the Click It or Ticket program. Okay,
Sure.
so therefore the federal government gives the state money to distribute to local law enforcement agencies because we want to make sure people are wearing seatbelts. Well, it's coming up to the end of the month. The sergeant looks at the statistics. They look at the patrol officers and they're saying, oh my God, if we don't get a few more of these written, we may not get this grant again for next year. So they look at that and they look at the list. Where's the easiest place to get somebody for a traffic violation? probably in a poor neighborhood that can't afford to replace the license plate light, the crack in the windshield, or anything else. So then, for purposes of chasing grant money from the federal government, we use over policing tactics in communities to do this. The trust isn't built in us, and then we never get the phone call about the house out of this down at the end of the street that's selling the weapons and everything else. And so if we just go around looking for violations that we don't have, probable cause or reasonable suspicion on, I'm going to end up getting all of you sued if you're in residence of Lorain County, because my deputies aren't doing their jobs appropriately. And so therefore, in regards to, it's not the immigration issue that my office is looking at, it's the crime that is being committed by people who don't have a right to be in this country in the first place, and we need to make it safe. So if you focus on the crime and you determine that they weren't allowed to be here in the first place, then you start the process of making sure that they're deported. However, if we have a victim here in Lorain County, somebody that was sexually assaulted, somebody that was murdered, anything else, I want that person being held accountable to that crime here first before they get shipped off back home.
Amen. Yes. And that's huge. Amen to that. That is something we need. You're correct. I guess my main issue with with what was going on, what's the difference between a bench warrant and a regular warrant, right? If you have a bench warrant, you guys aren't coming and knocking down doors, right? With a regular warrant, you are. The difference between a bench warrant is like, let's say
you fail to appear,
but you're not blowing people's doors down. You're not coming in SWAT heavy. You're not knocking in. So I think people are confusing, but those are limitations too, right? Like, let's say you had a failure to appear.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're illegal or not. I'm talking about just regular failure to appear. It's a bench warrant. It's not. I think people are so caught up with, let's go back to the Wild West, and he's going to have a 6-shooter on his hip, and the next time he sees, El Toro over there who came across the border, he's going to slingshot him at high noon. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, you in the wake of.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. And people are so, let's do it. We need that. You're following the laws. You're doing the best you can within the limitations that are set upon you. And I think that's what that article is. The headline should have been, trying to do the right thing, too much government tape. That's what the article should have said. You are trying to do the right thing.
Or sheriff refuses to enforce civil process of ICE.
Yes.
Something that, would have been done that, yes, we're going to execute warrants. Yes, we're going to arrest people. Yes, we're going to do all this. But the whole problem comes down, no one understands that a majority of what ICE is handling are civil process detainers, and no one other than ICE has the ability to detain or take somebody into custody on that.
And I don't think enough people, I can tell you this, I've been on Facebook enough people do not know how the law works in that stance.
What a missed opportunity for the Chronicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Really? Well, it's because it makes him look good. Now what he's doing is, hey, I need help. And again, I followed your campaign honestly very closely. And I knew when I read it, I've never seen, like, when I thought about it, I went, man, that's a switch.
Yeah.
Like that's a total switch from what you were campaigning on, from what when I was there and heard you speak a couple times. Very big switch. And then it's like, holy crap, that really it was taken out of context, I guess is the best way to say it. Taken out of context to the point where people who don't understand the law are going to look at him and go, well, we voted for a constitutional sheriff, we didn't get one. And that's exactly what the Chronicle wanted to do.
Well,
it's
too bad, because you expect those things from from CNN and all, but you wouldn't. You would hope that at a local level, the care would be there to report accurately.
I mean, you're not right, but it's Lorain County. It's House of Cards politics. Ask the commissioners how the House of Cards politics is going for them. I mean, it's ridiculous out here. We are living in the West. I mean, I just can't. I literally, because I helped some people on their campaigns this year. We do, we're a production company, so we do a lot of stuff. And the whole time I'm watching this political disaster in front of us, I'm like, I don't think I could go any higher than local politics, because I will be the one pushed into a train, like, by these people. This is nuts what we're doing to our own community in our own county within our own party. Like, it's crazy. And then to have to fight the whole world, outside of you trying to, come in and do your job, it's just not, it's not warranted. It's not fair. And that's what Liberty Unfiltered
That's why
is
we're
for.
here.
That's why we're
That's
here.
why we're here.
We want to give everybody the chance to speak freely, and not even defend. You didn't even have to defend yourself. You just had to explain in
You were just
layman's
spitting
terms.
facts.
Yeah, you're just spitting facts. You just had to
Right.
explain in layman terms, and I think, at least for me personally, it cleared a lot up.
Yeah.
You cleared a lot up yesterday. Do not get me wrong. You cleared a lot up yesterday, but coming on here, and just explaining the law, even things I didn't understand or realize, really, really helps. And it's stuff like this that, the sheriff department should do a like 1 hour podcast a month or a week or something, and do like a State of the Union or something like that.
Really,
Because
though?
what I'm
We
telling you,
actually will be doing
Yeah.
that. As a matter of fact, for the first time, we've actually created a whole nother division in the sheriff's office, which is the community outreach, recruitment, retention, the officer wellness. So Major AJ Torres leads that. We have another great guy by name of Josh Garcia, who's our social media campaign guy. So we're looking to create those media campaigns and to put them together, and actually doing that in the sheriff's office and space that we would have available. You're going to see a small television studio in there. You're going to see podcast studios. We will do the Java with Jack in the sheriff's office and present that on a weekly basis that we do that. And then one of the things that we're doing too is that we're bringing back one of the old detective sergeants who worked for the sheriff's office for years. We have cold cases that are not solved yet. So right now he's planning out the actual scripting of like a 3, 6, 9, 12-month episodes that we will take that case, and he's going to go through the case. We'll have it like this. The evidence will actually be brought out, shown to everybody. And when you go to our webpage, when that's done, you go to the Cold Case podcast, and then everything that was presented on that show, you'll be able to look at the letters, you'll be able to look at the evidence and everything else. And he'll be doing this every week in a live podcast to be able to present that. And then in addition to that, we're going to be doing another podcast with detectives and officers that they'll come on for the week for an hour podcast to discuss the most bizarre case that they've ever had. And I know one of the ones, former retired detective Dave Garcia from Lorain, he wants to talk about the Nicole Dyer case, and where there was the person burned, and talk about everything that had happened there. And people can call in, they can discuss the case, because I think people need to understand, yes, we're the 9th largest county in the state of Ohio, but there's been a lot of things that have happened here of great interest over the course of the last several decades.
Absolutely.
And Hillary, things your dad's been involved with, in his job and stuff like that, is that we just want to make sure that those stories get out there. People understand we're human beings too. This is what we deal with on a regular basis. And then let's allow the public in a little bit to what we do, and especially with the Cold Case podcast. There's been a lot of success with these over the years. That let's crowdsource this, put the evidence out there, and see what we can solve after all these years.
Oh my gosh. And if there's anything that you could use our help with, or
absolutely.
Publicize it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, that's literally like,
that's what the public needs.
oh my gosh.
Right.
Yes.
That's
how
something
incredible
that is. And that's something what the public needs. I mean, that's straight from the horse's mouth at that point. And if you, and seriously, Sheriff, if you guys need any help from us, Cam Voice willing to help you every step of the way. You need help setting up or anything, please reach out.
We appreciate that. I'm assuming Doug Stamper's offering his time too. Or?
Right. He's shaking his head. Yes.
Yeah.
No, and that stands. I'll message you, I'm sure, throughout the week. And
okay.
I'm serious. If you have anything, we set up podcasts all the time for people.
Well, it just even how you explained it, like that's literally
awesome.
It's almost verbatim the conversation that Keith and I had when we were starting Liberty Unfiltered.
Actually, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was that same passion, that same, the purpose behind it is almost verbatim of
100%.
Our intention of this whole thing,
of the whole podcast. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And then to have you come out there and do that stuff, and when you guys are
That's
launching
amazing.
And you guys need some advertising, let us know. We'll pump it out on our show all the time.
Yeah.
Community needs to stick with
Appreciate
community, and I believe
Right.
that as long as we stick with community and we do stay together, we can snowball the whole community into change. Whether they're going to fight it or not, we can still bring the type of change that most obviously. I mean, you got elected. Most citizens want a safer street. And clearly, you're going to be probably one of the most transparent sheriffs in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I mean, that's huge. So I really want to say thank you for coming on today. You didn't have to. You didn't know me from Joe. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for clarifying everything. And I look forward to working with you guys and the Sheriff's Department more in depth with anything you guys may need.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, sounds
Absolutely.
good. And Keith, if you do come out and do any work with us, we do this with our staff all the time because since we're elected, it's a sheriff's office, so we're fining everybody $1 every time somebody says sheriff's department. So
Perfect. I'm with you. I'm gonna be broke. I'll fund your whole thing.
right,
Well, if you want me to come down to the sheriff's office, I will.
The place where you work.
Yes, the place where you work.
right, exactly.
I
Very
appreciate
good.
it. I appreciate it. Hope to have you on again sometime. If you ever want to come
Absolutely.
back on, please let us know. It was a
Or
pleasure.
maybe we'll have you guys on. So
Yes,
absolutely.
we'll be there.
That
Call
would be
me,
great.
beat me if you want to.
right.
That would be great. Please be safe. Tell all your officers we
Thank
care
you.
about them.
Yes,
we
and
hope we
thank
want
you.
all of them to be safe. And please keep doing what you're doing. We respect you. We appreciate you. And congratulations on winning.
Thank you, Keith and Hillary. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon, Sheriff.
All right, take care.
So that was Sheriff Jack Hall, and I'm telling you, I'm glad. See, and everybody, no, but hold on. Everybody's like, "You're gonna MF this guy up and down," and I went, "No, I'm not. I didn't go the normal Keith route. I went the normal. Wait a minute, something doesn't add up. That's the
Yeah.
route I went when I read it. And in fact, I called you and I said, "Hey," I was like, "Do you have a problem with Jack Hall coming on the sheriff?" You're like, "No, not at all." You're like, "What happened? You know, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And when we did get him on, or when I was talking to him about coming on, you know, he was like, I'm trying to follow the law. Like I'm following the law. And I said, okay, we got to bring him on. We got to talk. And you were super enthusiastic about it, which made me happy.
Because he was willing.
And that was my thing too. Is he responded within minutes. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember looking at Tyler. I go, he just answered me real quick, and then he answered me in a paragraph. I mean, it was a paragraph, and I went, I'm not reading this right now. And then I'm
Yeah.
looking at it, I'm like, oh, I gotta read it. And I read it
Yeah.
through and I went, okay, something's not right. And I
Yeah.
when I asked him, I said, you come on to clarify it. Would you come on to clarify it? And there was no hesitation. It was yes.
That's
we
a
could
guy
chat
that
about it.
cares. And I'm
It
sorry,
is.
like I was told, like a manager taught me this years ago. You can't teach people to care. You can't pay them enough money to
No.
care. Like either you do or you don't.
Right.
And that's a guy right there. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. He
Truth.
cares.
He does.
And he literally just sat there and listened to us and came on live,
100%.
not knowing what to.
I could ambush the piss out of him, and he would
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
he doesn't know. He asked, you know, what I said, come on to defend that topic, and that's why I wanted to stick to just that topic because I
Yeah.
didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to snowball him with anything else.
Right.
But that was good. That was good. I feel a lot better about it. I feel like the article was BS a little bit. I understand what he's saying, but I feel that it was a little misleading. I feel that it was
Well,
a
because
little.
the article was written for the purpose of, you know, the local Joe Schmo to
That's exactly
read it.
right. Exactly.
You
right.
know, and that's where it was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's not gonna fly, and it shouldn't
No.
fly going
No, it
going
shouldn't.
forward.
And it
So
won't,
hopefully, you know, after they make
Right.
their what is it, their update or whatever it is that they're going to do,
Right.
hopefully this gives them the
It's a
opportunity to
little
do
bit,
the right thing. Yeah.
the right thing. There you go. Do the
Yeah.
right thing. Your news. Your
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I want to know what's going on in my news. I
Yeah.
don't want my news anchor. I don't want to know I don't want to know who we voted for.
Yeah.
I don't. I
Right.
want to know what the news is.
Right.
Now,
the facts of it.
Right. Now we're radio shows, TV shows are a little bit different. We're not news backed, we're news fact. So we
Yeah.
you know, we don't sit here and just deliver the news like regurgitate it like a robot like we want. That's not
Yeah.
our job. Our jobs, we're commentators. That's what we're doing. You can have that aspect of it. You can have the commentating aspect of it. It's when you start to twist things and lie where no, that's not news anymore. You know what I
Right,
mean? That's
yeah.
just that.
You can
that's
have an
just
opinion about
Sure.
a fact.
Sure. You can have an opinion about a fact, but
Yeah.
it doesn't change the stance
It doesn't
of said
change the
fact.
exactly.
So-
Exactly.
So before we get into it, what let's talk about your interview very briefly and then play it if you want.
Yeah.
This was another emotional. This is a very here's why I say emotional, because I am probably one of the biggest emotional people. I feed off emotional anger, right? Like
So do
I don't
So
go
do
to
I,
like
so
dude, like
do I.
when I read stuff, I don't go, oh man, I'm upset.
Oh,
It's
that's
like no,
too
I'm
bad.
pissed.
Yeah.
Right. I go from 0 to 100.
Pitchforks.
Yeah. Yes. Pitchforks. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go.
What can I do to make it right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And in the interview that you did today was one of them.
Yeah.
You look at that and you go, I'm probably gonna flip. You know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah.
in that position and I'm her, I'm pissed. And
Yeah.
I'm big boy pissed. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about going to the school board, and I would stand out there. I'd camp out there. Like, give me a tent. Give me a tent and a campfire, and I will be out there until
Well,
you
and it's
decide to change.
amazing. It's amazing the response that she's getting because, obviously Annie is a member of the Mentor School Board.
Yeah.
She homeschools her kids, but she still serves on the school board. And she does that, and she'll get into why she does, but she does it because there was a need for somebody to be
Right.
a voice for the people, not another vote towards an agenda.
Sure.
And so there was a need in Mentor specifically
Oh, yeah.
to have somebody advocate for the for the taxpayers, for
Sure.
the parents, for the teachers. Even there were there
Oh,
were staff
yeah.
members reaching out to her and being like, what can you share this, what can we do to help?
Right.
Which obviously led to her campaign. And since she decided to run, let alone winning, but even since she decided to run, she has been met with a lot of challenges, a lot of adversity.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, and what's so crazy is that, and she says this in the interview too, is that a lot of the things that the board is pushing. So, I mean, it shouldn't be lost on anybody that this board, as we continue the interview, has a liberal majority.
Right.
Okay. And that's a fact.
Sure.
Their meetings are televised. It's put
It's
on
public.
YouTube. It's public.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't hide from that stance, and neither does Annie and Rose.
Sure.
On their side of things, where they have a little bit more conservative. But the issue that Mentor specifically is having is not about who is who, because as you said, I shouldn't know who you voted
Vote
for.
for,
It
right.
should be about what you were elected to do,
Yeah,
to do
100%.
the job on behalf of the
Your
people who are
constituents.
signing your
Yeah.
paychecks.
The people.
Right. And that wasn't happening.
Right.
And that's where Annie stepped in. So,
Good
really the next thing to do is just play the interview.
Yeah, let's cue up this interview. And I'm telling you right now, before you cue it up though, this is it's a very important interview to watch if you have children in school, in public school systems, in private schools, if you have children at all. So, and it doesn't matter if you're from Mentor or not. It really doesn't, because this stuff creeps into our backyard. We're witnessing it. We're watching it happen.
Yeah.
So this is an important interview just for the amount of information that's in there, and to understand what's going on that you might not have been aware of right across the street.
Right. Well, and what's so crazy is that Mentor has the issues going on there have gained national attention. They've been on Fox News.
Yeah.
They've been on the Washington Post. They're on Libs of TikTok, but yet it's still not being taken seriously by the board members.
Correct.
And that's the whole point of this. That's what's scary, is despite national headlines, and national reporting, and despite changes being made at the state government level,
right,
and those changes had to be made and bills had to be implemented, because we couldn't rely on our local school boards to do it for ideology and their own agendas. That's what's scary.
Sure.
That's what's scary. So yeah, without further ado, we will introduce you guys to Mrs. Annie Payne. Today, Annie is a Mentor School Board member of Mentor, Ohio, here in Ohio. So that is the point of this podcast, obviously, to not talk about what's going on nationally, but to bring attention to what's going on here in our backyard. So if you are listening from Northeast Ohio, welcome. If you are, from other parts of the country, welcome. And please continue to listen, because if it hasn't happened, it very well could come for you, because this is what's blowing my whole mind, is that you would never think it's going to happen to you or in your home. But it does. So welcome, Annie.
Thank you. I just want to start off by saying I'm speaking on my own behalf, not on behalf of my board. I just have to legally make sure I say that. So,
all right, lawyers, did we get that? Thanks. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and what makes Annie very unique, is that Annie actually homeschools her children, but she serves for the public school board. So, Annie, I'm going to ask you, of course, one, why?
Yep.
Why? I mean, two parts. Why homeschool your kids?
Yeah.
And two, what possessed you to want to serve on a school board that your kids don't attend?
Yeah. So thank you again for having me, by the way.
Of course, of course.
I'm so excited to do this. But
Yeah.
so it's really weird how I came about it, because my sister has always been a homeschooler, and my son did go to school in Mentor for kindergarten and first grade. And first grade, I started having some issues. Like, he wasn't allowed to have a water bottle during the day, and he had excessive sweating and cramping because he wasn't getting enough water. So I had to get a medical note. I mean, so there was just like things. He was coming home with 45 minutes of homework, and I was like, oh, this is just not rubbing me the right way. Like, I felt like it wasn't right. And I would call my sister and be like, what do I do? And she's like, you need a homeschool. I'm like, you're hilarious.
Right.
I will literally never do that. Like,
Right.
Can you give me some different advice? And then she'd send me all these articles, and I would be like, yeah, but homeschoolers aren't socialized. And then she'd be like,
They're the weirdos.
yeah. And so she'd just like send me stuff, and I would just be like, Amy, can you stop? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to homeschool my kids like that.
Mhm.
And she goes, but you can, don't think you can't do it. I go, it's not that I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Like,
Right.
nothing in me was like, I want to homeschool my kids. But when the COVID era hit, and they were like, we're going to mask all your kids, I had an issue with that. And with my son already being a sweater and having, not taking enough water in, and having, muscle cramping and all that. Long story short, I formed a group of over 600 people on Facebook. I started this group on Facebook to get people to come to the board to say, stop causing mandatory masks on our kids. And here's all the reasons, X, Y, and Z. I spoke up at the Lake County Health District as well. And so I just started getting involved in that way and forming these groups and getting people to come and speak at the board meetings. And they had offered online learning for people who didn't want their kids to be in masks. But they said, going into this next year, your kid won't need to be mandatory. Like, there's no mandatory masking. I was like, okay, great. So I'm going to stick with Mentor schools for, at least for another year, and I'm going to see how
Right.
things go. 2 weeks before school,
They said,
They said-
bazinga.
yeah, they were like, just kidding. And so I called the assistant superintendent. I called the superintendent, and then I ended up getting the assistant superintendent. And he was like, yeah. I said, so you're telling me I can't even provide a medical note? No, we're not doing that. And I said, so you're saying my options, because you won't let me go into the online option because you already cut off that date before you told people, hey,
Just kidding.
right, just kidding. I said, so you're telling me my options are private school or homeschooling? He said, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I called my sister back that day, and I was like, I'm going to need some help.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Well,
what
and I
got
can't
me into
imagine
it.
that you were the only mom that felt that way, because obviously COVID, was serious,
Yeah.
and nobody really knew what to do. But it's one thing to say something and ensure the parents, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then go back on that knowing that it was too late to make
Right.
any sort of
Right.
alternative decision. Like, that's just irresponsible.
Yeah.
And that should not have been something that was pushed on you to have to make that decision.
No.
But thank God.
Thank God.
it happened.
It's been the biggest blessing. I'm in, I think, my 5th year now, and I'm obviously homeschooling both of my children. But
Yeah.
I grew up in Mentor. Like, I literally bought the house that I lived in with my parents, and they moved down the road, and I bought the house from them because I was like, I had the best experience at Mentor. I want my kids to have the similar experience.
Yeah.
And so I never imagined my kids not going to Mentor.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to homeschooling. And here I am 5 years later. There's so many more reasons why I'm sticking with it,
Sure.
outside of the whole COVID thing,
Well, meeting you and meeting a lot of women on Facebook, because I literally just made a post saying, hey, I'm considering homeschooling my kids, but I wasn't planning on it for all of the reasons. I'm sure that, you are like, I can't do this. My kids are going to drive me crazy. Like, who am I to be able to do this?
Yeah.
But it was, meeting you and a lot of the other women as well that showed me, like, this is not a small community. Like, this is a big, this is a big community, and there's a lot of support there. So that's how Annie and I got connected. And then, of course, following each other on social media, that's when I saw, like, oh, she's on the board.
It's
and
an odd thing.
why? So
Yeah.
how did
that
that
part come about? Okay,
start?
so So fast forward, I still had this group. I was still speaking up at board meetings against, the masks. And then through the board meetings, I was finding out more information. So there were some speakers that talked about some of this DEI training. I was approached by several teachers with screenshots of this mandatory training that they sent out to all staff, not just teachers, all staff.
They were coming to you for help.
They were, even though I wasn't on the board, and I was homeschooling my kids at the time, I just ran this big group.
You had a voice.
And so they sent me all these screenshots and I was like, oh no, I'm posting these, and so I started posting them, and it talked about about white privilege. Ibram Kendi, do you know who he is? He was like very big Marxist, all this. And anyways, he was quoted in all these articles, and it was literally directing the teachers and staff to treat kids differently. There was a wheel of privilege based on your color of your skin, how much privilege you may have if you're gay, straight, and male, female. And I was so appalled. We spent over $400,000 on this, of taxpayer dollars, on this training. And so then I formed a different group, which is the one you had mentioned earlier today before we were on this, and it's the Concerned Men or Taxpayer group. I started that group out of finding more information out about these board meetings and what was really happening, in our schools. And so I, when it came time to run and we needed somebody to get up there to speak on our behalf, nobody stood up. And I was like, wait, you guys, we can't just show up at these board meetings and voice our opinion and then not elect somebody with our values onto the board.
Oh my god.
So everybody was like, you should do it. And I'm like, my kids aren't even in the school district anymore. They're like, well, you should do it. And I was like, well, all right, God, here we go. And I prayed about it. And
but you got elected.
I did. It's a funny story. Like, I actually beat my old principal out of his position on the board. He was my principal back in elementary, and I liked him. Like, he was a good principal. But anyways, he was on the board. And
wow.
I just, I had no idea, if I'm being honest, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I was just like, all right, God, I feel like you're pushing me to do it. I guess we'll give it a go. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. And I stood on everything I stood on.
God was obviously, like, you felt like this is obviously happening for a reason, but the teachers are coming to you for help because obviously they felt like they couldn't.
Yep.
Other people were basically like, you're almost kind of like the Moses, of this. And it's funny that that's kind of how it happened, because you have that Moses mentality. Like, is this me? Like, is this really, like, are you sure that you're picking the right
show
person?
Me 8,000 ways that it is me.
Right. Exactly. And because of that, obviously you were met with a lot of pushback from, I mean, if I recall, was your home vandalized, or you were threatened at some way?
So there was another school board candidate, and he was also the DEI expert for our school. I'll just say DEI expert. And he happened to be a principal at another school. And it wasn't him directly, but his family members. There was a family member of his that had posted something not true about me and basically pitting me against, the Black community and all this, that. And so then there was a whole entire thread on Facebook about these people wanting to come to my house, roll up and smoke out my house. They wanted to roll up on me and, shoot my house.
How tolerant and inclusive.
And so I did call the police. They did have to come to my house. I did fill out, an incident report or whatnot. And, so, I mean, even then I was like, am I really doing the right thing here? Like, this is not fun. And I didn't sign up for this, but then at the same time, I'm very strong in my faith. And I was like, you know what? I hurt my back really bad doing literally nothing, like pulling out the trash, at one point when I was deciding to run. And I said, okay, God, you don't want me to run, because I can't run from my couch. Like, I couldn't even move. And I had MRI, this, that, and the other. And long story short, there was a friend I met, and she prayed over me. And then I said that night to my husband, I was like, you know what? If I'm not better, like by tomorrow, I think this is God telling me he doesn't want to do this. You know what happened the next day?
Were you better?
Was like 100% better. Didn't have to take medication anymore. I could move. I was like, all right, Jesus, here we go. Like, sign me up.
I choose you, Pikachu.
Yeah. So even though, I had threats on my life, threats on my kid's life, I was like, I'm a fighter. My background is
over the school board. So like, I mean, I want that to really be like the main point. She was literally getting threats on her life and her family's lives over running for a local school board. If that does not like scream to anybody, there's an agenda. I don't
Right,
know what
right.
does.
I mean, it was scary. And the funny thing is, I had no idea even how much we were going to make. Like on the school board, I make $125 a meeting. I'll be there from 4 until midnight, you know? And so it's not like you get a salary or anything. You get paid pennies, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So obviously I wasn't doing it for that, but I remember being like, this is intense. Like, am I really,
Is it worth it?
I
Yeah.
really wanted to do this. And I just heard so loudly, like, yes, this is, I'm picking you, like you're doing this. And I was like, here we go. All right, God. Like, and my background is, I met my husband. I was an amateur boxer. And so like, I've always kind of had a little bit of a fight in me, the arena.
So let's pick on the woman who could probably kick our ass.
So-
That's
so
great. That's rich. Love that.
It was funny because I don't give up easily. And I, you know, it's just something that God has ingrained in me is like, you know, fight for what's right. And I
Yeah.
just always had this like fighting spirit. And
Well, and the
Yeah.
fights continued. So it
Mhm.
didn't end there.
no.
So I don't, with all of, I mean, I have a list, you guys, of articles, stories. I mean, not like literally Mentor has made national news. So
Mhm.
I kind of want to start at when did the national, like the major media attention start?
It started when I got on the board. And so, and you know, it's funny because all the people who dislike my position on the board will say, you know, no, we didn't have this before you. Well, right, because you weren't telling parents what was really going on.
They didn't know the truth.
Right, and
They
I
didn't
don't
know
ha-
that they had a reason to
Yeah,
fight.
Right. And I didn't have the majority. I mean, I was pretty much just me. And then there was another person that eventually started, you know, agreeing with my position on the board. And but it was pretty much just me for a while. And I was like, listen, I respectfully disagree with you, but I'm going to expose what's happening because parents deserve to know. If they don't know, then they don't know if it's their choice to pull their kid out or keep their kid in and fight, you know, for what they believe is right or homeschool them. Like that's their decision to make, not ours to make for them, because not
Right.
every kid learns the same way. And I didn't want to have to choose like my kids, you know, soul over the school, but unfortunately I did feel like that was, you know, so certain stuff was
That was
coming
the
in
war
and
you had to
affecting-
fight. Yeah. Well, and not only like the parents, but I think what gets lost too is that, you know, there's a lot of people that live in Mentor that don't have kids
Mhm.
that go to the school, or their kids are grown and graduated, but they still live there and they still pay taxes and they still are levy
You
voters.
got it.
And you know that I watch a lot of your meetings. And for one, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a lot of school board meetings are recorded and publicized the way that Mentors have been. Which I think if they're not, they should be, because everybody should know. If you live in that city and you pay the taxes to live there,
Mhm.
like you should know what's going on in your schools, because schools, you know, are the main reason why people move to certain places. The resale value of your
Yeah.
home. I mean, it's just what that town really revolves around, you know. And with that being said, like I watch these videos and I see you be accused of not being a champion or a cheerleader for
Mhm.
public schools. And, you know, why are you, you know, they're still questioning, like, you don't even have children
Yeah.
here, so we really can't trust your motives behind it.
Yeah.
You know, all of those things. But it's beyond that.
Mhm.
So where, I mean, as far as the support that you get, do you think the majority of it comes from people who don't have kids in the school? Or are you still, you know, receiving messages or hearing stories from, you know, parents that are in the school, like just for other viewers to know, and have that understanding? Yes, you are obviously concerned for the taxpayers, but I'm sure that there's obviously parents that are going to you with valid concerns.
Oh yeah. So the group, that Concerned Mentor Taxpayer group, once I got elected, I handed it off to a previous mentor, a retired teacher. And so she kind of has ran that group. And so I still have many parents coming to me. I mean, I would say the majority are probably parents, especially when it comes to bullying. I have a lot of parents who come to me about that. I know Rose, who's obviously on my side, Rose Iapolo, she's on the board over the last year she was elected. She's wonderful. You know, obviously she's, we're both on the same side in a lot of this.
Just one more person
that,
you know, that is steadfast in a lot of the things that you are steadfast in, was elected to this board. So I kind of feel like the people are speaking.
They are,
you know,
and she got the most votes too when she ran. She got the majority of votes. So I think it speaks volumes. I think the recent election, speaks volumes too. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people who are still afraid to speak, but they come to me and her instead. We just met with somebody last week too. Same thing. Like we sat down with this parent for about 3 hours talking about, issues. And so I think it's parents, it's taxpayers as well. I mean, it's everybody, but they like to pin me against the school,
Yeah.
which is hilarious because I went to Mentor schools. My entire, education was Mentor schools. And I loved it so much that I bought my parents' house
Yeah.
thinking my kids were going to go there. But I just couldn't sit by and watch it. Like our community doesn't stand in the majority for these very liberal ideologies.
No.
And so I had to do something to try to course correct and bring attention to it, because otherwise I do think we didn't pass a levy last year. We
Right.
didn't pass a new money levy. Our renewal passed, but we didn't. And I think that trend will continue unless we start making some changes to align with what the community wants.
Listening to your
Yeah.
constituents, because that's literally what your job is. You're an
Yeah.
elected official. Like that's literally your job.
Right. I'm not elected to be a cheerleader of the schools. I'm
Yeah.
not. Like if they can say I'm not a champion of the schools, well, that's fine. You could say that, but I'm not elected to just be a cheerleader.
Right.
People didn't elect me to just go in there and rah, blanket sign off on anything.
Yeah.
They elected me to be their voice. And there's a very big difference between being a cheerleader and being the voice of people who elected you to do, what they feel is right.
Right.
And
right.
so, and they have to remember over 70% of our budget, our revenue rather, comes from people who don't have kids in our system. So you're going to ignore their voice.
Yeah.
We're going to have a problem when we ask them
they're
for
levy
money.
vote. I mean, they're
Yeah.
literally levy voters.
Yeah.
So I think the first big thing that I noticed just from, being on social media is the sexual there in
Mhm.
books. So from my understanding, and please stop me and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there was a protocol that was put in place and voted on and passed.
Yep.
And this was it was your idea that you brought it
Yep.
to the board. And it was basically making sure that we got parents' permission before these books were checked out. So not that the books were taken out of the
Right,
library,
right.
is that if it had, any sort of,
Yeah.
sexually explicit material, that the parents got approval
Yeah.
before
Yep.
okay. And then all of the sudden
Mhm.
it got
Rescinded by the majority 3 board members, the Cook, Jeschling, and Marchaza. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say those names again: Cook,
Yeah.
Jessling,
They'll be up for re-election in November.
and Lauren Marchaza. So Annie's not going to say this, but I can. Lauren Marchaza, girl, you're a piece of work. You really, really are. And yikes. I would encourage everybody to go on the Mentor YouTube and watch how these elected officials conduct themselves in these meetings. And yeah, Lauren, honey, you don't need my help. You do that all on your own. But why does it make sense to rescind?
Mhm.
Okay, so you can't go to strip clubs until you're
Right.
18.
Right.
You can't, legally, possess pornography until you're 18. You can't even vote until you're 18.
Mhm.
And now you can't even smoke cigarettes or drink alcohol until you're
Yeah.
21.
Yep.
So what in the world justifies allowing minor children
Yep.
to read sexually explicit material from their school library that their parents do not have knowledge of?
Yeah.
Make that make sense.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is one thing that gets my blood boiling. So, and the reason, let me just backtrack a little bit. The reason why I proposed this policy a couple years ago was because we were getting book challenges, and the book challenges were basically about graphic molestation of minors. When I say graphic, I'm talking about, there's a book that was like called Identical. There's a book, The Bluest Eye. In these books, it talks about fathers graphically raping their minor children.
Okay.
And I mean, in detail, like what they're doing to them.
Oh,
it,
God.
it is gut wrenching.
Now, were
and-
these book challenges presented by you, or did parents bring them to your attention?
Parents or community members brought it up.
Oh,
Yep.
God.
And so they were voted continuously to stay by our liberal majority. board.
Why? Why?
And I voted against them, and I would read excerpts from them. And it took all of what I could to read these excerpts, because it literally, I mean, it is so disgusting and I can't even imagine why anybody would want their children to read these books, but let alone
Without
in
their
a school building without their parents' knowledge. And they call me book banner. Listen, I'm gonna take out all of the age inappropriate books that shouldn't be in the schools if it was up to me. I don't think we should
Yeah.
have graphic, sexually explicit books with fathers molesting and raping their children for children who are 14 years old to read.
I don't but I
And
still
without their parents' knowledge,
Why?
too. So-
Why?
I really think it's just I mean, there has been nothing that they have agreed with me on. I could say I made a suggestion that ended up saving $2.5 million, and I barely got a good idea, from one of the board members who said, like, thanks for doing what you did.
So you really think and this is just for, for people listening to understand, you really believe that the board members are voting either for or against these things in order to disagree with you? Like we're going to that level where we're
Yeah.
going to permit your child to be exposed to, sexually explicit material,
Yeah.
sexually violent things.
Yep.
For the sole purpose of disagreeing with you.
Yeah, I can't.
What other
fathom
what other
any
reason
other
is
reason
there?
because
Yeah.
at this point I was like, okay, listen, I know you guys aren't going to remove these books. I get it. Like that, ideally that's what I wanted to do. It's at the library, and you can't even take our library card. We give our students a library card.
Yeah.
You can't take that library card and go rent those books, lease the books from the library,
From the local library.
without your parent changing your card and signing off on you could have access to anything in the library. So they're even more strict than we are, and it should be the other way around. The school should be way more strict than the library,
yeah.
And so
because
I
it's about
don't-
learning, right?
Yeah,
Because like our school should be about like learning, and a school should not be the place to learn about those sort of things. Now, what was interesting is the one of the excerpts that you read
Mhm.
was a Sarah J. Maas book.
Yeah.
And I'm a Sarah J. Maas
Mhm.
fan, but I'm 29 years old,
right,
married, and
right,
I'm an adult.
yeah,
But I can tell you firsthand, it's not okay for kids to
No,
read,
no.
and not just from that, but the other these books come with trigger warnings.
Yeah,
They do.
right.
They come with trigger
Right.
warnings. And it just, it made me sick. It
Yeah.
really, really did.
right.
It
And
made
to
me
not,
sick.
Like to not. So my policy just said, which passed. There was one board member who wasn't there. I think she would have voted against it, but it passed 4-0. And then they rescinded it this year because they said, we're just allowing parents to opt into getting any notifications about any book that they want to. And so it's an opt-in process where parents can say, I want to know what my kid's looking at before they check out any book. But there's a very big difference. People don't expect us to have these books in there. They
No,
don't-
why
when I
are they
was
there
talking
to begin
people-
with? Yeah,
Right. And
that's odd.
so like if we're not going to have a disclaimer, which Rose and I said, have a disclaimer on there saying we do have sexually explicit books, you may want to check this box then if you want your, to be aware of these books that your kid could check out.
Yeah.
Most people don't expect us because we're a school. We shouldn't have this
Why do you have it there?
this stuff in there. And I just think it's so inappropriate. And I read a book, and I bring it up at the board meeting when I vote on these things, called by Corey ten Boom. Are you familiar with her?
I'm not, but
So
please go on.
her father was talking to her in the book, and she was a child, and he was like, can you pick up that suitcase? And long story short, he said to her, some stuff, because she was asking a question about, sex. What is sex? Because she overheard it. He's like, some stuff is too heavy for you to carry. Just like I have to carry that suitcase, I need to carry it for you until you're old enough and
Yeah.
mature enough to handle it.
Yeah.
And these 14-year-olds are not old
They're
enough or mature
not.
enough to handle
Well,
it.
and that's, I'm glad that you brought that up, because my sister is she's a counselor for schools.
Yeah.
And obviously there's certain things that she can't share, but what she can say is that there is a direct correlation between certain behaviors and mental illnesses
Yeah.
and things like that when children are exposed to things that they shouldn't be
Right.
before they're ready.
It's not developmentally appropriate.
No,
It's just
no,
not.
it's not. And unfortunately, like, because of those things, that's why she has a job.
Mhm.
That's literally why she's there and why they
So
need
sad.
her there in Coweta County. So it's not just like one school with a
Right.
few kids. She
The
she
whole
works
county.
for the whole county be, in direct correlation to
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about, because it's traumatizing for kids, and it's
Mhm.
not meant to be. Sex is such a beautiful thing, for adults, not for kids. It's
No,
literally
yeah.
ruins it ruins
Yeah.
it, and it's devastating. That's devastating to hear.
Yeah.
So when that happened, so what's interesting is Maggie Cook, hasn't she been the president for quite some time? So
Mhm.
she did vote for it.
Mhm.
So she was one in particular that did change her
That
mind.
changed her mind, and she said, because I mean, she had so many reasons as to why, but there's no clear definition. Literally, the policy had a very clear definition, and I don't want to say it because it would probably be very bothersome to some people, but I mean, it was very graphic in detail as to what sexually explicit was.
Yeah.
We're not stupid. Like,
no, yeah,
listen,
it doesn't take a
we
rocket
can-
science.
It's not,
rocket
yeah, it's
scientist.
right. I mean, it's like the mental gymnastics that they have to do in order to say, hey, we really don't need this policy, so we're going to take it back, is insane to me. Like, you don't need a degree in library studies to know what is appropriate and inappropriate for a 14-year-old. We
Yeah.
have common sense says it. And in fact, now with the House bill that the bill that just passed, Parents' Bill of Rights, we have to go back now and do exactly what that policy said.
Yes.
Because-
So
yeah.
can you elaborate on that? So
Yeah.
most people, they hear House Bill 8
Mhm.
and they hear, oh, it's the parents' rights bills. And that's where it ends.
Yeah.
They don't, I mean, why would you look it up unless you really had to,
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something necessarily that, people voted on. It was, obviously discussed in, within, the state Senate and passed by and signed on by the governor. But can you tell us what House Bill 8 entails?
Yeah, so there's so much to it, but in general, when we're talking about sexually explicit sexual content, it now says you have to make parents aware. So just like my policy said, we have to, flag books or materials that are sexually explicit or of sexual content, and we have to make parents aware and give them the option to, not have their kid read it or not have their kid, take part in
well,
those
is there
materials.
more to
Then
House Bill 8
there
than just
is.
the book? Okay.
Yeah. So House Bill 8 had a couple different things. So there's K through 3, no topics about sexuality. So like right now we have a book, Heather Has Two Mommies, is in 2nd grade. We've got the Fletcher series. We've got several different books, and Tango Makes 2, makes 3. And these are books that are LGBTQ, books. And I had voted against. There was a huge collection, kindergarten through 5th grade, that was passed a few years ago. I voted against it because,
and to be cleared,
Yeah.
you are a proud Christian, but you
Yeah.
did not vote against those things because of necessarily you are a Christian. It's because
no,
LGBTQ. I mean, it's your sexuality. It's who you want to sleep with.
Exactly, right. Just like I don't think flag should be in the classroom because the flag says
who you
know,
like to screw.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's not it just doesn't have a place in that.
Yeah.
So I voted against that whole K through 5 series, and then I went to the public and said why. Like, I'm very I want to let people know when I vote no why.
Yeah.
Because they deserve to know.
Yeah.
And so like Heather Has Two Mommies is for 2nd grade. I don't care if Heather has two moms. I don't care if Heather's mom was divorced and married the mailman. Like,
but why are we talking about Heather's mom and who
Right.
she likes to screw?
and this, like, my son would just want to know, can Heather come and play? Like,
Right. Exactly.
so I just didn't feel like it's not age appropriate.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, let's have kids get to know the kid.
Yeah.
And are we going to include, what about, polygamy? Are we going to start to have books in there about that?
Right.
Are we
Right.
going to have books in there if a child has, a father who's in prison? Are we going to have books for everybody in the class to read about that too? I just don't feel like it's age appropriate. Like, they want to know, they want a book about Heather going to the grocery store and picking out a nice dress, like,
right. Right.
Flowers
Well, and I feel like
things
it
that
kind
are-
of like it robs the parents of the opportunity to explain for them, for themselves, because
Yeah.
that is a parent's right to do
It is,
so.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what was brought to my attention at your last board meeting is an organization called OSBA.
Mhm.
So what can you tell us about OSBA? And then we're going to get into why OSBA was against
Mhm,
this
mhm.
House bill.
Yeah.
Shockingly,
Yeah.
because how could you be against it, in my
Right,
opinion, as a
right.
parent? But
As a parent, it just
yeah.
adds additional layers for parents' rights, so And just to backtrack a little bit on the Parents' Bill of Rights, K through 3, I believe now you cannot discuss that at all. So all of those books that they put in there are going to have to be pulled because they are part of the actual curriculum. They're part of the K through 5 curriculum. So, and they're during silent reading
Okay.
time, so parents never
They don't
bring those-
know.
They don't even bring them home, and the parents don't know, and they're not part of the library program where parents are made aware.
Yeah.
So, and then House Bill 8 also included release time religious instruction. So
Okay.
we could talk about that later, but I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, OSBA, Ohio School Board Association, I have voted down OSBA every year. Now, I think school board members should be able to go to whatever training they see fit.
Yeah.
But when you use public tax dollars, they're a 501c4. So they use public tax dollars for lobbying purposes, and they pay over 6 figures for a few lobbyists. And then those lobbyists go at the state house and they lobby for or against things, and they'll under the guise of being supporters of public education.
So the taxpayers that's who funds this organization.
Mhm.
And then the organization turns around and they become lobbyists
Yes.
for.
Things that could be against that taxpayer. Like
Okay.
parents. So
Okay.
prime example is, they came out against the Parents' Bill of Rights, specifically the RTRI, the release time religious instruction portion of it. And they sent out an email to all board members, any members that are with their organization.
Which is probably like thousands.
And
like
then
thousands of
yeah, and
people.
not only that, admin, anybody, superintendents, they all got this, and it was a push. It was a call to action to contact your rep, your senator, and tell them do not support this.
That's weird that
Yeah,
a school
right.
association would have anything to do with politics at all. Especially when they're,
Yeah.
I mean, like public schools, like they are funded by the government. Like that's not a secret.
Right.
It's not a secret. So you would think that one, why, like don't bite the hand that feeds you. But not only that, like when you are a public school, you kind of, how do I say this delicately? You kind of lose that that ability to be politically like on one way or the other. Like you basically do what the state tells you to do.
Right. So there's the Ohio Department of Education that tells us, what prescribed curriculum needs to be taught.
Yeah.
But actually, so federal funds, a lot of people think that we get all this money from federal funds. We really don't. We don't get a whole lot from the state either. The majority is from taxpayers, local taxpayers. The majority of our budget, like 70-something%, comes from just taxpayers. Federal is like 1% of our general fund, which is like 6% of our entire budget, I believe, is from federal funds. So we really don't get a lot.
It's not a lot.
But it's actually worse, because if you're using taxpayer money and then you have to go to them and say, hey, I need you to support another levy. But by the way, I used a portion, even if it's just $1 or a cent, whatever, to push against your rights as a parent, because that's OSBA came out and said, call and
Call
say,
your
and
hot
push against
chance.
it. And their excuse was
because you did end up calling, and you were because the email was
it
was inappropriate to send to
so
begin
I
with.
blasted it on my social media.
Yeah,
on my campaign page,
because
my
people need to
campaign,
know.
because I just feel like it's so wrong. And leading up to this, a couple years ago, OSBA has a lobbying platform. They have a legislative platform.
Why?
Right. I have a problem with the legislative platform anyways.
To begin with.
Right.
Right.
But then when we dive in deeper, 2 years, I think it was 2 years ago, they said, hey, we had school board members who want to see parents' rights added to the legislative platform, where then OSBA would lobby for parents' rights.
Because that makes more sense.
Our board, we had a meeting, and I said, well, we need to be very transparent with the public. We're going to vote on yes or no. Are we going to support this as a whole, as a school? Because every school then has a delegate that votes on behalf of the school at the convention for this legislative platform.
Right.
And then based on all of the delegates, it either passes or it fails. So it's confusing. But anyways, long story short, our school board 3-2 voted to not support the Parents' Bill of Rights, being added to the OSBA platform, because they didn't like the word all. Parents don't have a right to know all, because they gave little, examples. But parents do have a right, in my opinion, to know all.
They do.
They're the ones who make the decision to send their kids to public schools or wherever they want to send them. So here we are. And thank God the Parents' Bill of Rights passed. But OSBA sent out a push to say, hey, we disagree with this. And then I did have a conversation with the person who runs OSBA. She called me after she saw my post. And she was, I mean, pleasant enough to speak with, but I just said, you know, we have diabolically different opinions on this. She said the reason was because their legislative platform has in it that they will support local, you know, like local decisions. And this takes away the local decisions of the school board because the state's stepping in and saying you have to require release time for religious instruction. And I said, well, I have a problem with your legislative platform in general.
Yeah.
And then I have a problem with you not supporting parents because it's the Parents' Bill of Rights. And the fact that they didn't add it to their legislative platform 2 years ago, and now they're pushing against it, I just think is just
But what's
morally
interesting is that the
reprehensible.
school board's not even listening to the local people.
Yeah.
They're not listening to their constituents
Right.
anyway. So I kind of feel like the state had to step in.
100%.
They had
That's what and
to.
thank God they did, because we've lost 1,000 students almost in 5 years, and homeschooling has increased by like 63%. It's maybe 62.
Wow.
So we went, yeah. And then also private schooling has increased too. So we're seeing and some of it, yes, is from an aging community, but if it was solely an aging community,
It would have stayed the same.
right, you wouldn't
think.
see 62% increase in homeschooling, you know, and so people, and now with Ed Choice vouchers where they give you free money to send
They're
your kids
getting
to
the hell
private school.
out.
Yeah, and I care about our schools. I don't want kids to have to do that. My mom was a single mom. That's part of the reason why I ran, because she would have had no other option
But to send
but
you
to send me
school.
to public school. And I did have a great experience. And that, I mean, I wanted to be a voice to say, like, we got to course correct. This is wrong. And both my parents are retired special ed teachers. They retired from 30 plus years being special ed teachers.
And then somebody has the nerve
and
to
they
say that
I'm
you're not a
against
champion.
teachers. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it's just so funny. Like, our role is not to be a cheerleader and sign off. I mean, they didn't even look at we had a board meeting where they were giving our superintendent a new 5-year contract. And when we went to the meeting, I said, well, what are we voting on? They seconded it. They pushed it forward for a vote. And I said, what are we voting on? And they were like, well, we're voting on his contract. I said, it's not in the system to review. And then I was called by Maggie Cook, said to me at the meeting, she said, well, what was the word she used? She's like, she said something like basically gaslighting me and turning it on me. Like, you're not being, you know, forthcoming or something, like turning it on me.
You're
like,
not. They're the one that didn't put it.
right. Like, she was trying to turn it on me. Like, I should have told them days ago that it wasn't in the system. No, that's not my job. Your job is to do
You're
your
the president, lady.
right. And your job is to look over everything in the system before you vote on something, especially something that's a $200,000 contract.
Right. And then she wants
rounding it. But
and then she's wanting to be president.
yeah, I mean, the
again.
contract could have said that he gets 15 years and $500,000
and you would never
and a portion of all the taxpayer dollars. Like,
you would have voted on it
and-
because it wasn't
because it wasn't in the system. Yeah. And so
So-
like, and that was the second
isn't
time
that like
had
leadership
happened.
101?
Yeah, but OSBA doesn't teach you that kind of stuff. I mean, they teach you so they basically weaponized OSBA against me, called them in twice with one of their OSBA leaders to tell me to like basically get in line. You know, like, you need to go with consensus. It's the consensus of the board. You need to go along. You need to be one unified voice. And I was like, no, I was not elected to go along with what everybody's doing. I was elected to stand up, even if I'm the only one standing.
Right.
That's my job, is to
Yeah.
do what people elected me to do and to vote. I was very honest with when I ran. I was like, listen, I'm against X, Y, and Z. I think there's two genders. There's boys, there's girls. I don't think boys should be going in the girls' bathroom. And because I didn't want to be voted in and have people get mad at me and say, oh, we didn't know that you stood on these things. I wanted to be voted in if people did support me enough
Yeah.
and align with me.
Well, and obviously that's what happened clearly, but we are seeing that mentor. I mean, you've made it to Fox News.
Mhm.
You've made it to the Washington Post. You guys have been on Libs of TikTok. Because mentor specifically is gaining attention for not just, not including parents, but pushing, liberal ideology
Yeah.
on the kids without parents knowing. So the first thing that I wanted to bring up was the Pride Club. Now, I'm not against a Pride Club, especially in high school, because a lot of the times that is when, kids are starting to, they're starting to date and things like that. And obviously, there's sex ed and things like that. So if there is a place for the LGBTQ community to meet other people, I'm so fine with that.
Mhm.
But what I wasn't fine with was the
Flyer.
the flyer where it specifically said no permission required. Now, I will be honest, I was in quite a few clubs in
Mhm.
school, and I didn't have to get permission for, to join like speech and debate
Yeah.
or things
yeah.
like that. But this particular flyer, I mean, Pride Club, again,
Mhm.
it's about, I'm sorry, but it's about sex. What separates somebody from being straight and being gay is who they want to have sex with. So
Mhm.
this is potentially it's a sex club. I mean, not in the the act, but a
Sexuality.
sexuality club.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't parents want to know?
Yeah.
And of course I am not clueless to the fact that there have been situations where a child felt like they couldn't come out to their parents because they were afraid of certain things. Now that is not something that a club,
Right,
that would
right.
be something where, like, if there was another family member or a guidance counselor or a position that my sister has to kind of create that barrier. But for it to be advertised, hey,
Mhm.
you can come to this club
Mhm.
where we can discuss who knows,
Yeah.
and your parents don't have to know about it.
Yeah, morally that's wrong. I mean, I think so much of this is, I mean, first of all, I think all the clubs should have a parent signature, because if they're after school, we don't know if they're really going there or not if we don't get a parent signature, and
Sure.
what if the kid says I'm going to this club, but really they're going behind the school and smoking weed? Don't tell me that doesn't happen, because we know it does. Like
I did it.
right. Like
I was one of those
right.
kids.
I remember kids doing that. I remember them saying, "Hey, I'm going to this, club," but then they're literally staying after school with other kids and smoking, weed. Like,
Yeah.
so
At least.
right? Like,
Whew.
who knows what else was going on? I mean, other things could be happening too. But I think all clubs should require parent signature. But in no way, shape, or form should any teacher put on a sign, "You don't have to tell your parents." And that's basically what it did. And I very much disagree with that verbiage that was on that sign. Parents deserve to know. I think we overstep our boundaries in a lot of places where we are then trying to assume the role of the parent.
Right, because
They
it went
are-
beyond
yeah.
it went beyond this sign. So there's a video, Tyler, if you want to get that ready, where Mentor made it to Fox News and got Caitlyn Jenner's attention for he said they were selling pronoun buttons at school.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So there was somebody had leaked out, and I actually didn't leak it out. So I would be honest if I did. I mean, I'm very honest with things that I do put out there to the public, but
Yeah.
A teacher had leaked out a email that the assistant superintendent had sent out to 6th grade teachers and up. And it literally said, I'm going to, shorten it, but it basically said that if you have a student that wants to go by a different name, a different pronoun, basically use a different bathroom, you are not to tell the parent. And so that is what got leaked to Fox News National. Fox News National then, they reported on 2 of our board meetings about this. And I very much said, we are overstepping our boundaries. You should absolutely not do this. You need to tell parents.
Well, and what's so strange, and from what I'm seeing, on the Facebook page and comments from other people, is that Mentor, in addition to a lot of local schools, are having a bullying issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue nationwide, everywhere.
It's really bad.
Yeah, and a lot of the trend is, well, parents should do something. Parents need to be more involved. We should be charging the parents as long, with the kids, blah, blah, blah. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have the parents involved and blame them and say that they need to parent, but then
exclude them from the
exclude
essential
them
information that they needed about
from
their kids.
exactly.
Things that could, and then there's even a statistic that if they're if children are wanting to be a different gender or whatever, that there is a statistic that is higher for suicide. And so that was one of the points I brought up, is like, hey, we know that there's a correlation here between suicides and this particular group, and how do we not include the parents? How do we not tell them, knowing that there's that correlation?
Right.
The parents,
as a parent, I would be furious if there was something that I could do to help my child in any way, whatever it is, and if it was, say for instance, Brantley came to me, "Mommy, in order for me to be able to be the best version of myself and to do well in school, I need to wear a dress and I need to be called Brittany. I love my son, and I would say, okay, now would I chop his dick off? No. If that's what you want to do, son, when you're older, then fine. But as a parent that loves their child, if I mean, then that's what you do. But then you also turn around and say, okay, son, if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. However, here are the consequences that could happen. You open that conversation. So that way, if bullying, is an issue, at some point you have to teach your child, if this is what you're going to do, this is what could happen, and this is how you deal with it, instead of suffering in silence for not just, feeling like you need to wear a dress and can't, but also you're getting bullied and it blows my mind how the schools are just, they don't want their parents involved, but yet when things like this happen, all of a sudden it's, well, parents need to learn how to raise their kids. Well, if we don't know who our kids are.
Yeah. Well, and their excuses, well, they might be not accepted at home, but that's not our place.
That's not for the school.
That. Now, if they're in danger, that's different. We have a mandatory reporting. We have to mandatory report. We have to report that. It's mandatory,
right,
to the officials in the state and
then the
child
training
services, all of that. But that's not what they were talking about. They were talking about Johnny might want to go by Joni, and
you don't tell mom and dad.
Don't tell mom and dad. We're talking about 6th grade too, 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade, 6th grade and up. My son is in 6th grade, and I'm all for parents' rights. I may deal with things differently than somebody else, but it is the parents' right to know that, and the parents' right to say, hey, Johnny, you can't be Janie. We're going to talk about why you can't be. Or a parent might say, let's go, find you a club, or I mean, that's the
resources,
right.
whatever the parent wants to do.
But that's not our place to make that determination.
No. Well, and so when it comes to this House Bill 8, where does that play? What the pronoun thing, does that play any part?
Yeah, so we can't do that. I mean, we can't. So parents will have to be notified. There's a couple different things. There's a SAFE Act that passed last year, which prevents boys from playing on girls' sports. Right. We did have that situation happen in our schools where we had biological boy playing on a girls' team, and I don't know how many. I don't know if we had several or whatnot, but I know that we did have that situation happen, and so that had to cease, because the state came in and said, once again, like, it's my background is boxing. Let me tell you, I could weigh, less than, or I could weigh the same as a man, and they come in there and I'm getting a bloody nose while they're,
yeah.
Well, they're going on
haven't
skate.
Even break,
and I was a pretty decent. I mean, I was all right. I wasn't great, but I could hang,
Right,
so
right.
There is a vast difference in how people are, built, male versus female. And I do believe there's only two genders. Like, I don't believe that there's
absolutely
more than two. So
it's amazing what science can prove with just opening your eyeballs. But I want to air this clip, because not only is it mind-blowing that we have a local school on Fox News, but we have Caitlyn Jenner, who is transgender. She's a transgender adult. So let me rephrase that. She's a transgender adult championing for parents' rights.
Yep.
Leave our children alone. I am so against this. To see what has happened to our educational system. Honestly, it started back in 1979 with Jimmy Carter starting federalizing education in this country with the Department of Education. And over these years, the teachers' unions have become more and more empowered and emboldened to do exactly what they want and to try to take the parents out of this. I am 100% for parental rights. I had helped raise 10 children. I have, here we go, Stuart, 21 grandchildren, okay, that are just starting into the educational process. I want the parents to be emboldened. They are the ones that are in charge of their children, not the schools. I want the schools to teach reading, writing, arithmetic, not gender pronouns and all of this. Leave our kids alone. I look at my own life. And if I would have been growing up in this environment, obviously I had these, when you're trans, you have it pretty much your whole life. And I don't know where my life would have gone if I would have been growing up in today's society with the teachers and the teachers' unions having so much power over things.
Well, I mean, he made a good point there too. I mean, he even said and he said this in his own thing, like when you're trans, you kind of have an idea that you're trans, but still, I feel like they kind of the schools kind of use that as a, well, if this is how they are, they need to be that way here at school. Okay, fine, but tell the parents.
Yeah, I think it's even deeper than what we think. So like the OEA, the Ohio Education Association,
Yeah,
which is the most teachers are a part of it. It's the union, the Ohio Union for Teachers. And if we go back to, I put this on my page too, and gave follow the money, because there were hate ads, like terrible hate ads put on our conservative candidates for it wasn't this past year, it was the year before when Rose was running and Gil were running for school board of Mentor. But it was all across Ohio, and they actually did productions on TV. They did ads against them. They did ads against them on the internet, on Facebook ads. And it infuriated me. And I was like, wait, I wonder where these are coming from. So I contacted the state. I got all my ducks in a row. Then I did a post on it. And if you follow the money back, it was over $1 million that was sent from OEA alone to this PAC, which then put out these hit ads, because it's all public record. You can look it up.
yeah.
And OEA does have a lobbying platform. Most people are not aware of that. My parents were retired teachers, and they didn't know until the last few years, and that what their dues were going towards and all this for these lobbying things, that they very much were against their beliefs. They're very much pushing a liberal ideology. They're lobbying for it. And then now they're going after
They're not
candidates,
just
which is not very smart, because then those candidates still get elected, and then they have to negotiate contracts with teachers unions.
Right.
So it just
doesn't make any sense.
But they do it not thinking that anybody's going to grab hold of it, and nobody's going to find out that it was them. And I am so appalled. There's so many players in public education, like OSBA, OEA, even our Mentor Teachers Association. I have so many friends that are teachers, and I love them, and I had the best experience.
My sister's a teacher.
Yeah. And so I'm not against the teachers, but the Mentor Teachers Association did give $2,500, and they endorsed candidates for school board. And I think that is morally reprehensible. I don't think it's right, because you're handpicking.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I mean, they did it with me, and I didn't get chosen. They picked Maggie Cook and Ginny Jeschling, who are very, they have a more very liberal ideology based on their voting history as well, which anybody can look up. So I'm not trying to call them names. I'm just stating it as it is.
The meetings are aired. They're recorded.
Yeah, and I mean, that's their opinion. They were elected. I respect that they can have a different opinion than me, but I very much disagree with it. And I disagree with these teachers unions coming in and giving, $2,500 to candidates to help them, because it's a lot about too how much you have in your campaign. These races are costing people $30,000. Me, I did not. I had no idea what I was doing. It was by the grace of God that I got in there, because I think I only spent $7,500, and that's nothing compared to other people who spent
right.
$25,000, $30,000.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, and so in addition to what's going on at Mentor, I mean, we're seeing that your board meetings they're not typical board meetings, because you have major police presence at your board meetings.
Yeah.
You have parents who are speaking, who are very upset. And what I'm seeing from libs of TikTok, you have a bullying problem, but you've also had issues with the school and there was an article that OEA published about pushing for boys to be able to go in girls' bathrooms. They advocated for that
at the State House.
Yeah. But your school specifically did have at least two, I can see here, where there was a boy that identified as a girl that assaulted a girl in the bathroom. And then there was another situation. I don't know if it was the same student or not. It was the same student. Okay. So that's interesting to me that that student wasn't expelled right from the rip.
So expulsion too is very interesting. I just found this out being on the board. Like, I don't know why. I always thought expulsion was like, they're done. They're out of our school forever, right? I mean, most people think that, but
Yeah.
really in the state of Ohio, you can only expel for 80 days.
No.
Yeah. And so, and then if they have an IEP, like I can't speak to a specific situation because of FERPA, but these are just general examples. If they have an IEP, then it makes it even harder. There have to be like a hearing to expel somebody or to give them, strict consequences, things like that. But yeah, now
Was that always the case?
So there's a House bill that just passed that now said we can renew that 80 days if it's, X, Y, and Z. If it's so a lot of these situations, some of it too is that we don't discipline like we used to, because we have this restorative justice, which is also restorative practices, which does lean to a more liberal ideology, right? And it's like all about, let's talk about our feelings and let's not have harsh punishment.
And then they wonder why bullying's a problem.
Yeah, like we should have the harsh punishment first.
Yes.
And then I'm all for, trying to reconcile, but also if it's really bad, if somebody punched me, I don't want to reconcile with them right away. Like I would be afraid of that person, know, as a child,
Well,
as
and especially if it's the same student, repeatedly.
offenders, which most of ours are. 5% of our discipline issues are issues, bullying issues, and mean behaviors and all that.
Yeah,
5% are the repeat offenders. 95% are. They're fine. So we're disrupting all these other kids with these repeat offenders, and we don't have enough harsh punishment to say, yeah, I'm sorry, at some point, you're going to be expelled. Your option is to go online. Your option is to stay at home.
right.
But instead we're seeing people leave because they're not left with other options. I just think it's so, and thank God for homeschooling. I mean, I know it's not for everybody, but we talk about these books, right? And it's just such a big difference between what we can offer our kids. Like my son, one of his things he had to do the other day in language arts, it literally was talking him through how to discern between what books you should read and what books you shouldn't. If it, is really coming down on the family hard and making it look like the kids are making fun of their parents and their siblings, and it's just not wholesome. Then, if it's age inappropriate, don't read it. If it's this, that, and the other, it really kind of gives them wisdom as to picking out good books. Same situation here. I just think that we're blessed to be able to homeschool, but not everybody can. But yeah.
So we have a clip that was on that Libs of TikTok has posted. So Libs of TikTok, I didn't really know what it was. Yeah. So basically it's a page where things that are truly outrageous, regardless of the aisle. If it's that outrageous, kind of like the end of our segment, like, is this real life? That's where Libs of TikTok, that's where you go to look for those kind of things. And Mentor School District has been on Libs of TikTok
numerous times,
quite often, for things like this. So what I want to do is I want to air one of the videos where basically it's kind of like what a board meeting looks like, where you have parents who are upset because the board isn't listening, but then you also have this one individual, and I don't know if it's not on this video, it's on the next, and we'll show that too, where you have parents who are just like out of their minds spewing hateful things. Mm-hmm. And we're not, and what are you supposed to do about that? Just sit there and take it?
So most of the time I do, but like if it's really, I had one person that was like, you're friends with somebody who does porn. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So I let him speak for 3 minutes. And then I did say, that was the most egregious thing I think I've heard so far. And I did just give my 2 cents back. And that's slanderous. It's not true. So sometimes I do say things. For the most part, I'm quiet just because they get their 3 minutes and that's it. But if it's really egregious, I will say something.
But that's what your school board meetings have turned into.
Yeah, it's really sad. And it's not, they point the finger at me saying, ever since you've been on here, this is what, no, I came to the board meetings once people found out what was happening with other parents. So it started before I was on the board. I just am holding them to the fire of, hey, if you're going to say and do this, then you better tell the public that you're doing it.
Right. Okay, well, let's air it. Let's see.
Ma'am, you are interrupting our business meeting. You are interrupting the business meeting.
The first book being challenged was Right Now, Real Kids Speaking Up for Change. The kindergarten through grade 5 title introduces readers to kids across the world and highlights their stories of activism and encourages activism in their own local communities. The book mentions Greta Thunberg's environmental activism as well as transgender activist and TLC star Jazz Jennings. Many parents Tuesday evening say the book is not factual or appropriate based upon political discussions like immigration law, climate change, and gender identity.
There's no room
This
to
is
sit.
patently absurd, and you know it. Are you really going to promote lies to remain in our elementary school libraries? If you do, you're also promoting and agreeing with false statements that our children can transition between genders at will. This is a most despicable lie.
But many also disagreed.
Banning books because they have a reference to a child being transgender is what is wrong with our society. Because, in fact, we do have transgender students in our school district.
The second book challenged was Empire of Storms. Parents claim it highlights multiple detailed graphic
That's what
sex
bothers me
acts.
the most.
I don't want to hear sexuality and kids in the same sentence ever again.
Many parents also brought up other issues the school district needs to focus on instead, like excessive cell phone usage, class size, and bullying.
What is important is that we as a group stop taking our personal values cudgel and beating the heck out of our board members.
Reporting in Menor, Bryn Caswell, News 5.
Okay, we do have this.
I've never seen a board meeting with that many people in it. Like, what?
Well, we had one in March of 2023. I proposed a resolution to say we're not going to allow boys and girls bathrooms anymore. We had over 200, and they voted it down. Of course, you know.
So
it's
even though
3-2
they're-
vote, but
I'm-
yeah, we had over 200 people in the room. A lot of local news at that too. But yeah, and it's so funny because when they say ban books, I'm like, it is. So would it be banning a book if we had Playboys in there? If we had,
You
I
might
mean,
as well with Sarah
like-
J. Matt's books.
I'm like, this is not banning books. And if you want to call it whatever you want to call it, it doesn't hurt me. Call it banning books. I will ban all the age inappropriate books from school, not the library, from
Yeah.
schools because they're not age appropriate. And so that parent who challenged the Jazz Jennings book, the book with Jazz Jennings, saying that he's I don't know, whatever.
Cat.
Jazz is a childhood hero. You know, she ended up pulling out all 4 of her children from our district right after that.
Really?
Yep, and now they're going to private school. And
Huh.
I mean, more people pulled out their kids this year. And I can't help but put 2 and 2 together. We keep going down this. We had a failed levy. We have people pulling their kids out. We have to course correct. But
Right.
they're unwilling. And the
So-
only thing that's going to change that is a different board.
So, well, and
And state laws coming through, which is our helping. And
right. Obviously,
Mhm.
state laws are coming through because the board isn't doing
Right.
what obviously they were
morally
elected. Right.
Mhm.
So, but so say I'm a mentor citizen, what hope do I have
yeah.
that my vote, my voice
Mhm.
means anything?
Yeah. So that's
We
so,
put our hope in
right.
this in the state government because that's kind of scary too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we had a state rep who's my state rep, and I did have to have a conversation. He voted down the Parents' Bill of Rights, and I had a follow-up conversation with him on the phone, which it was very respectful. But I was like, I don't think you were on the right aisle, and he had different reasons as to why he voted it down. Said he stood with me on all of the. I mean, he's a Republican,
Yeah.
but said I stand with you on all of this. I just didn't agree with this one part of the bill. I'm like, oh, but the majority of the bill is good, so pass it through.
Yeah.
It's morally right. Like parents deserve to know. So we had some disagreements on that, but yeah, I think that the more parents that get involved, like the Concerned Mentor Taxpayer Group, I am so thankful for them. They are
Yeah.
wonderful. I can't give them enough, kudos and thank them enough because they've stood by me and they've really put things out for the community to rally behind, and that's how we got Rose, I think, in the position.
Well, I just don't know how the other
Yeah.
board members how do you sleep at night?
Right.
Not just because you're out of your mind, but because you are an elected official not doing literally not doing your job and listening to your constituents. And they're not hiding it. They're not even trying to hide the fact that they are using their own ideologies and it's an abuse of power.
Now they're not hiding it, but when they ran,
They were,
That's the
yeah,
difference. Like Rose and I both ran and we put on our flyers, we are against, we are for X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
The others did not do that. It was very, so, you know, I would say to parents everywhere, like, be very careful when you vote for board members. Look at what they have on their documents. Like when they're sending out flyers, look at what, if it's just vanilla, chances are they're not fighting for the things that you know, if you're wanting parents' rights and wanting, you know, a moral compass, they're probably not on the right aisle of that if they don't address it head on. I had people when I was running that they were like, I don't know if you should put that on there. I go, I don't want to be elected if people don't stand with me on this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what
You know?
more can you ask for than to be
who you are, be who you
be,
are.
yeah, being
and
honest.
let people know, you
Yeah.
know, this is what I'm going to do if I get in there. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I do think there's hope. I think so a lot with the state bill, you know, state bills coming through and Senate and the House, you know, a lot of them are backing our position on this now. But people can, and Trump obviously being in office is going to help with some of that. People cannot sit back.
Right.
Like that if anybody's listening to this and they get anything out of this, get active, get involved. I don't care if you have kids in the district or not, your taxpayers are going, your taxpaying dollars are going
Show
to
up
it.
to these meetings.
Yeah, and make sure that you support candidates who you stand behind. Make sure you do the research and support them running for school board.
Yeah.
We're going to have an election in November. I'll be up for re-election. Maggie will be up for re-election, and Ginny. Obviously, I'm the only conservative out of us three.
I would be interested to see how that goes, especially after now that a lot of these things that you wouldn't think.
Like there's a voting record too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only hide from your position so long. And I think that people are more aware, at least now. So I do think there's hope. I mean, there's always hope in God, as what I say, but
right.
But I think that there's definitely hope that things can change. I think people just need to be aware and get involved, especially in November for the next school board election.
Yeah. Well, because literally, like your life depends on it. Not just your kids, but like where you live, resale of your house. I mean, it's that important.
And the next generation too, right? You know,
Yes.
people when they say, I get it all the time. Why didn't you just leave? Like, just let it burn, you know? And I'm like, I can't do that because regardless, I can homeschool my kids. And like I said, now it's for way more reasons. Even if the school was perfect, I would still choose to homeschool my kids because I love the socialization, that, you know, the opportunities that we have are just endless. And
yes.
my son and my daughter have thrived in it.
Yes.
It's not for everybody, but it's for me.
Right.
And, you know, I think that, I just think that we can get to a good place again where we'll be on the right track, and it's just so close. You know, November is right here.
Yeah,
So.
it definitely like a season of hope.
Yeah.
and change is here. So what I wanted to do before we finish up is you brought your
I have some show and tell items. Yes.
yes. Now
So-
are these books currently in your
Yes, they
school's
were
library?
both voted on, and they were both voted on and voted to be retained by the majority. You know, Cook, Jeschling, and Marchaza, or actually one of them, Marchaza wasn't on there yet, so it was Mary Briner who was the old president.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'll get them out and just so I think people deserve to know. Like, this is part of the thing is a lot of people don't believe that this stuff is happening, and so I've learned to bring show and tell items when I do talk to people about it because they just don't grasp it until you show them and read them excerpts from what, you know, we're putting in front of kids. And not everything is bad in our school. We've got our CT program is great, music, you know, so many things are still great, but these are things that are making people pull their kids out or that are
now these are books that are in your elementary.
So this
or
one
high
here
school
is this is actually part of that book collection that I said, K through 5 book collection. This is it's either all 4th grade or all 5th grade classrooms for silent reading time. So it's in every 4th grade or 5th. It's either 4th or 5th. I want to say it's 4th. But it's Colin Kaepernick, From Free Agent to Change Agent. So I'll read a little bit from it just for fun story time.
Yeah.
A funny side story real quick, like 2 seconds. My son, I never knew what I did on the school board until this last year. He's in 6th grade now, and he's mature enough to, like, you know, understand some of the things. And so I let him look at this book, and I was like, tell me what you think. He's like, that's terrible. He's like, Mom, that's labeling all these people who voted for Trump. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So even he, who is, you know, gonna be 12, like, he gets it. Like, it's so crazy. So it says on page 9, some people believed candidate Donald Trump's speeches often had racist overtones. He stoked fears of immigrants and minorities. Some of his supporters were white nationalists, people who were openly racist and believed that non-whites were inferior. Many Americans were alarmed. It was clear to Kaepernick that a century and a half after the abolition of slavery in the United States, racial injustice was still common, and racist beliefs were deeply embedded in many people who controlled U.S. institutions such as the justice system. And then it talks about BLM in a positive way in here too. And
I disagree with those things, but even if all of those, say for instance, were true, why is it in your? Why is it in the school?
I mean, it's not appropriate for children.
No,
like even if they were true, and mind you, I've asked for book balance. We don't have anything showing anti-Biden stuff, and let me tell you, there's plenty that could be out there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so if we're not wanting to show equal sides of the aisle,
it's just
then
more
it shouldn't
proof.
be in there, and it's not age appropriate.
Well, it's more proof of ideology pushing that they're trying to say that they don't do. So
Right.
Obviously you do.
And so they voted. This book was voted. I voted to get rid of it for obvious reasons. It doesn't meet our policy, and they voted to keep it. So it's still in there. This is still in there. Then this other one was voted on. This is middle school. It's transphobia. Deal with it and become a gender transcender.
Deal with it. Can you imagine if you're like, just as as a straight person, I'm straight. Deal with it.
Right. It's just
we
the
would
tone
be
and everything
hateful,
is wrong. Yeah.
bigoted, all of those
Yeah.
things. I'm straight. Deal with it. Hashtag deal with
Right.
it.
Right. Like I was called bigot. I was called all these for voting against this. I'm like, listen, do we want to teach kids to label others? Because I thought we were against that.
Yeah.
And I like the Kaepernick book labels Trump voters.
Yeah.
How many kids are we going to have now labeling others if they read this book? Because
As white, yeah.
you're a white supremacist.
Wow.
They'll just go there with it. So this one says on page 4, what is transphobia? It's actions and attitudes that are based on certain assumptions, like everyone is either male or female. So like
it's an assumption.
And so we're labeling kids as transphobic for not, for believing there's only male and female genders. And I stand firm that there are only male and female genders. I don't care what people call me.
Yeah.
I believe that to be true. There is truth. There's not your truth and my truth. There is the truth. And that's the truth. And I try to be graceful when I say it, but it's not age appropriate and it's not truthful.
Right.
So-
Well, and there was a TikTok video that I saw of a guy saying, everybody needs to be more, understanding of the trans people, like, go to their house, be friends with them and see like, oh, you have a dog trans person, what is it, a boy or a girl? And they say, oh, what, and how do you know? Come on.
I mean,
come on.
Yeah, it's it's wild to think that this is where we are in education. Like we are not supposed to be pushing any side. I don't want extreme right stuff in there either. I don't want extreme left stuff. I want us to be right down the middle, like our superintendent said in the Washington Post article that we should be, but we aren't. And so that's where I want to get
especially when
back to
test
neutral.
scores are declining and bullying is, there are enough issues that we could be
and this is
talking
just feeding
about
the bullying by labeling kids.
Right.
And people and parents. It's putting parents against their kids. It's just we do have such a big bullying problem. And when it starts from the top to the bottom,
right.
I've been bullied in situations as a board member from people that are right up at the top
that are supposed to be inclusive.
Yeah. So it's just, there's obviously we just had the board meeting. Anybody can go watch it for our ideas. I know Rose and I want to bring back strict discipline.
Yeah.
But we do have still a restorative practice piece that nobody has been trained on, but yet we're doing it. I don't know the degree.
Because they're too busy training you on DEI and all of those things. It blows my mind.
So crazy. I know. So thank God I'm blessed. I feel like I can be a bigger voice because my kid is not in the district. I do feel like if I had them in there would be a little bit of me that would be like held back,
Yeah.
And I'm blessed that God and other people have put me in this position to be their voice. And
well, yeah, because it was clearly a voice that the community needed, obviously. But while we wrap up, I want to bring attention to your sweatshirt.
Oh.
And it says, keep casting, first cast mojo. And to kind of like brag on homeschooling and your family a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
Your son is 12.
He will be 12. Yeah.
And he's a business owner.
He is. Yeah. He's a little entrepreneur. Yeah. So he started this company because in our homeschool co-op, we've got a lot of people think, homeschoolers aren't socialized. Well, our co-op has almost 100 kids in it that we meet with once a week. And we have lots of public school teachers who also help us teach our kids at these co-ops. But we had a market for homeschoolers. And I was talking to my son, and he had already wanted to make these. He's an avid fisherman, so it's kind of his thing. And so he wanted to make these. They're like Senko worms, which are bass lures. They're made out of soft plastic, like premium soft plastic.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, so he makes these lures, and then he came up with a logo and everything. And this is not the logo. This is just one of his more recent things that he put together, because he really loved the Bible verse that talks about how we're supposed to be fishing, for men, and like get people to follow Jesus. And
Yeah.
so he sells his apparel on Facebook right now, just on Facebook, and at markets, local markets. But yeah, he's really taken off. He's done several markets, and he's selling his stuff. It's great to see him get into something like that. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, and obviously that is something that would have been more difficult for him to do if he was in school, having to obviously deal with all of the BS that we just discussed that these kids are having to deal with. So, I won't lie to anybody. I am absolutely a homeschool advocate. My oldest is homeschooled. My youngest is not, but probably will be next year once he matures a little bit, because it's not for everybody, and everybody has different things. So I mean, this is one of the 1,000 reasons, and I would love to have you back on to even go deep dive more into the homeschooling
aspect.
Because I can't even tell you, like, I just started homeschooling, and I've already had so many people reach out to me saying, how are you doing this? Because of many of the reasons of what we just discussed. So
we're actually, so one of my friends who's a 8-year public school teacher who now homeschools her kids is in the 5th year. Her and I have both started Zooms, so that when people have questions about how do I start homeschooling or about homeschooling, they can jump on this Zoom and ask us questions, because we were getting so many questions.
Right.
We gotta streamline this process.
But you will be on a webinar. So
I'm also doing
Elevate your cooking with Big House barbecue spices. Whether you're grilling with our barbecue bee dust dry rub, dipping bread in Italiano herbs, or adding kick with our sweet and spicy blends, our spices are perfect for home cooks and professional kitchens alike. Crafted from premium ingredients, they enhance everyday meals and elevate gourmet dishes. Transform your weeknight dinners or create signature flavors for your restaurant. Taste the difference with Big House barbecue spices today.
What's going through your head at that point? Like hearing this, because this is not the first time you've heard this,
right?
But hearing it in a setting like this hits different. I'm sorry, it does. Even when you're just talking with your friends or whatever, and she's you know her, so you've talked about this before, but now you're in the trenches. You heard this. This is what was going through your mind? Like, what are you? Just describe your feelings about this, because I mean, I will too.
I mean, honestly, it was devastation. It was devastation.
Sure. Good word for it.
Yeah,
great word for it.
My oldest is homeschooled.
Sure.
My youngest is in public school, and just to be once again faced with that inner battle.
Sure.
Is putting my child in public school the right thing for my child. And
right.
Not even talking about academically.
Sure. That's weird. That's crazy in a sense. But yes, I agree with you.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
And the reason I asked you that question, I'm going to follow this up now. The reason I asked you that was because I have 4 kids too.
Yeah.
This is not a left or right issue.
No.
This is not a man or woman issue. This is a child issue.
It's right or wrong, literally right
Correct.
or wrong.
There is this should not be you shouldn't have to reach across the aisle for this. This is something that should be common sense.
Yeah.
This is something that should be.
Well, and that's what she mentioned. She mentioned morally, even though it's to a point now where it's no secret where people on the board sit. But she keeps right. But she kept bringing up like morally, it's wrong.
Right.
And that's where it's just like, when you send your child to school, you are trusting strangers.
Oh yeah.
With your babies.
Sure.
And that is a relationship that I feel like is really, really undersold and undervalued.
Correct. Well, that's when trust is broken on that. When
Yeah.
trust is broken on any front, there's a problem. But when trust is broken on that front, it's
Yeah.
never brought back. It's not.
Yeah.
Because you're a mama bear. I'm a papa bear. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm telling you right now, I've known you long enough that when it comes to your children, don't piss you off.
Oh my gosh,
you
yes.
just don't. And that's
Yeah.
because you are a mother.
Yeah.
That's because you know you have a life you're taking care of. Like
Yeah.
that is your child. Your child. Notice I didn't say it's the state's child.
Yeah.
It's your child. And that what she was talking about during that whole I took away a lot from that. Because again, I'm a father.
Right.
But one of the things I took away the most is common sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Common sense and morality.
Yeah.
How are we not getting that?
Well, and seeing the parents, I mean, the one mom, she was practically in tears,
Yeah.
screaming at the board, like, this is wrong. Like, this is wrong. And why should any parent, why do you have to go to those lengths?
That you shouldn't.
You
should
shouldn't.
not.
And it's
Now,
breaks my heart.
I will go to those lengths
You-
for my children
yeah.
if I have to.
Right.
But I would much rather be at home talking about how to be a contributing member to society with my children.
Sure.
How to, what sports they want to play, what video games they like. I am tired of having this discussion with my kids, and I shouldn't have to. Now, it's up to every parent to teach them about sexual things. It's every parent,
It's your responsibility as a parent.
It is, but it's your responsibility as a parent. We do not need the state telling us how to raise our children.
Right.
That's not something we want. That's not something we need. And that woman needs every ounce of support. And I'm not just
Absolutely.
talking about from where she's at. I'm talking, and again, I'm glad it's getting nationwide coverage. Okay, I am.
Right. Right.
But now nationwide coverage is great. It is. Where's the action?
Yeah.
Why do we not have people lining up behind this woman from every state
Everywhere. Yeah.
and coming there and saying no? And I get it. It's hard to get people. It's hard to get people away from the keyboard warrior phase.
Well, yeah, because we're in the cancel culture. Heaven forbid you
Correct.
say something,
Correct.
you voice your opinion. I mean, even like we had something going on today in my local school district that, I felt the needed to, to speak about. And my husband said, Hillary, you're putting a target on your back. And I said, but that's the problem. The problem that me speaking up
Right.
is
Right.
that I'm the
But-
one drawing the target, not the perpetrator should be the target.
Amen to that.
What world do we live in?
A bizarro world.
Yeah.
In all
Yeah.
honesty. And I said I have different views on how I raise. Like I'm a parent, right?
Yeah.
So when my son, at a younger age, right, and my twins, they don't. I'm gonna say something that I don't want, and I'm probably gonna get canceled for it. I'm gonna say something. I don't spare the rod.
Yeah.
Okay, if my son has done something that deserves a paddling. Now, I'm not talking about taking my son, setting him outside and curb stomping him.
Busting his ass, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You smack his ass. You say, and you ground him.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you do as a parent because that's how you teach behavior. Because you want to know what if he does that in adult life, he's going to get the same thing except they're shackles and it's a paddy wagon.
Right.
So instead
Right.
of going to the corner for 4 hours, and getting you are now in jail for 30 years because you don't know how to act. You don't know how to follow laws.
Yeah, but
don't
you act
know-
like you put your baby in the corner for 4 hours. No shit. Ah!
I did.
No. Well, I'm
When he
sure it was
out-
deserving.
oh yeah, when he was out of the corner, he looked like a baby fawn trying to walk. Like his legs were all. But guess what? Never did it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, and again, I didn't starve him. Like,
Right.
I
You
just
didn't beat
made-
him.
No, I didn't. But I made him stay in the corner. But like, people nowadays, you can't do that. Oh, if you smack your child, well, I'm not talking about smacking my child.
Right.
I'm talking about punishing my
Discipline.
spanking. You don't hit in the face. You don't hit in the stomach. You don't beat him up. You don't punch him. You don't do anything. You smack his ass. And after they're and then after they're a certain age, 13, 14, 15, that doesn't work anymore. Now you're taking
Right.
things away. But
But it's still discipline, and it's discipline
Sure.
however you see fit. Obviously, in the in the
to the
confines of
restraints
the law,
thank
right?
you, to the restraints of the law.
But still, like,
Until the law tells me I can't.
see, and that's where what's so ironic is that the OSBA is saying these bills are taking away the rights of the local school board. Well, okay.
What rights do they need with my children?
Well, exactly. As far as like making decisions on what's best for that local school. But okay, fine. If that's the hill you want to die on, then don't let it get to a point where the state has to intervene.
Yep.
Period.
Sure. I can go by that, because in my mind, when you said that, the first thing I'm thinking is what's best for the school board. That means what's best for
The people that live in the school
the people
district.
that live in the school district, meaning I want my schools to have air conditioning and heat. I want my schools to be taught what we vote upon, because it's a public school
Yeah.
funded by public tax dollars.
Right.
That means we publicly fund it. So like, yes, you are correct. Do the right thing. Nobody gets involved.
Right.
Teach. That's your job.
Right.
To teach history, English, right?
Right.
That's your job. Math. Teach them how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
I'd rather my children know how to balance a checkbook, know how to rotate tires, know how to change a tire, know how to cook, the basics, know how to sew. Laugh at me all you want. There's been 50 times in my life that because I've known how to sew, there's been a serious, thank God I know how to do this.
Right.
I was taught that in school.
Right.
My kids are not taught that anymore.
Well, and they're also not taught those things, but they're also afraid to get in trouble
Yep.
because they
Yes.
call somebody the wrong pronoun.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Right? Why? Yeah. And that's exactly right. That's that. I guess that
That's
was
the
coming on to
last-
my next point.
But that's
right.
the last thing that they should be
worried
about.
Especially when you're in the sponge stage of your life.
Right.
That's why
Or being assaulted in the bathroom.
Yeah, come on. Like you can't, as a woman, you cannot want that.
No.
Like you can't, especially as a young woman that has to be very awkward.
Right.
Now you're putting them in an awkward position.
But I also wouldn't want to be.
weird.
But I have boys.
Sure.
I wouldn't, say for instance, one of my kids came to me and said that they felt like they needed to, wear a dress. If I had to choose, okay, and this is just my opinion.
Sure.
If I had to choose my son being a victim of getting punched in the face or being accused of assaulting
Sure.
a girl in the bathroom,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I would choose the punch.
Take the hit.
I would take the hit and then
Yeah.
deal with it. I would much rather
100%.
deal with my son
100%.
being the victim and understanding the consequences of the way he's choosing to live his life, because that is an adult, like that's literally a life lesson.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
100%. 100%.
Then be put in a position where all of a sudden, just because he wants to wear, because he wants to wear a dress, he could be accused of just. That's where my mind goes. Being, a mother of boys is not protecting them from violence is, that's a given, but protecting them of being accused of committing a violent act,
Right.
Especially in the wake of Me Too. Like, I feel like that's also my job as a parent, to make sure that something like that
It is.
doesn't happen.
No, it absolutely is. 100%. But now you're breaking down what the parent's job is
versus
what the school's
Yeah.
job is.
Yeah.
If we can break that down, why the hell can't they? If we can figure out school does this, home
The fact that this
does
is a
this.
conversation.
Correct. It's something I never thought I'd see. I went to, they closed school down because it might have got cold. Back in the day, that did not happen. Like we were.
When they offer busing regardless of where you live. When
Yeah.
I was growing up, I was 1.9 miles away, so I could not get busing. So my parents worked. Both my parents worked full time. I had to walk in the snow in wintertime, and my sister and I would turn on the hot water and put our feet in the tub to warm them up.
We're
like
our
that.
parents.
Yeah.
You know that, right? Like we're our parents. The same
Yeah,
crap
yeah.
that our parents told us that we were like, we're going, oh crap, that was true.
Yeah.
That was right. Oh, we got a comment. Read it. I can't see it.
Okay. So my 29-year-old eyes are
29?
quiet.
The hell?
Okay, what does it say? What parent doesn't want to know where their child is after school? If my student wasn't home, I would want to know why. I would be concerned, especially in this culture. Exactly.
Oh, amen to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen to that.
Well, because I can speak to that because I did those things. And my parents, I mean, I said I was at, this club or I had this meeting or whatever. And no, there was.
I said I was at church and I was dying of alcohol poisoning. When I was a kid, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I was bad.
Right. And I think the whole point of like being a parent is wanting better for your kids than what you went through, but also realizing,
That's fair.
but also realizing that like the whole concept of I trust my kids, then you are an idiot.
Oh, I don't
you
trust
are
my
an
kids as far as I can
absolute
throw them.
idiot.
And the one's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can't throw them very far, so I'm not going to trust them very far.
Exactly. So where the
And-
school can help, that
After school, probably
you can do that, right?
I'm going to say something, and please, this is on recording. It's the only time I'll ever say this, and it will be on recording. And I understand it, and I understand
I'm
what I'm about to
excited.
do.
I'm excited.
I hate Hillary Clinton, but
Shocker.
but she's right. Takes a village to raise a kid. It's just not the way she thinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your community need what I go to Sheets. I'm from Ohio, so Sheets is like, it's 2:00 in the morning.
It's
like
the Wawa
Airport.
of the North.
That's correct. Yes. We go to Sheets. I go to Sheets. Why is there 100 kids on a Friday night at Sheets?
Hanging out at Sheets.
I'm like, dude, when we were,
Where are your parents?
I know we had pool halls. We were, at 18, I was trying to sneak into RC's brew house at Amherst to get free beer. You know what I mean? But like,
I bet you got
no.
into.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, no, I had a beard at 16. I was, yeah. And but they didn't check IDs or anything back then.
Right.
They're like, God, that was good times. But,
Right.
Now you look at it, it's like your kids don't have a safe place to go.
No.
They just don't. My mom, she might not have known where I was.
But she knew that.
She knew that if I needed something, I could call her.
Yeah.
If I was in trouble, I could call her. There was never a time where I was a bad kid. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
joking when I say I was a bad kid, but there was never a time if I did what they considered the acceptable route, like don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
Called them. I did the acceptable route. I never got in trouble for that.
Right.
They were disappointed, and sometimes that's worse.
But now
when you
it's
say,
like-
I'm not even mad, I'm disappointed. And you're like, crap. It's like things like that. But where's the sports at? Where's the after school anything? Like do you remember the Boys and Girls Club? Is that still a thing? That the Boys and Girls Club needs to come back. The YMCA.
I mean, the Boy Scouts aren't a thing anymore.
Yeah, what are they now?
The Scouts of America.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Well, and even, but you made a good point. Like you could call your mom.
Yeah.
I can't trust my kids with a cell phone with what cell phones are capable of doing these days. So then you have to accommodate in other ways.
So here's bad parenting tip number 1 for you. I don't monitor my kids anything. And here's why. I'll explain why. My son is 13. And he comes and looks at me and he goes, I'm failing this class in school. I go, what? Why? He goes, because it's liberal. And I was like, all right, next question. Fail it. Let's talk. Fine, whatever. They're trying to teach you. So he's like, they're trying to talk to me about things that aren't what we should be talking about, aren't political.
Right.
And I said, okay, I get it. And then I hear some of the stuff they listen to. I see some of the stuff they watch. And I asked my son, Aiden is a good example. Aiden, are you going to ever do drugs? No. And the only thing is I believe him because of what he's seen, because of what he's witnessed. My son is a nerd of the nerds. He is he's our Dungeons and Dragons DM.
Love it.
Not even kidding.
Love it.
And all my kids play. My kids are going to make very bad decisions in their life.
Yeah.
It's my job to make sure those bad decisions don't kill them, but teach them lessons.
Right.
If you fall, get your ass up. Like
Right.
that's what needs to happen.
Right.
But you can't shelter them so much, especially being older now. You can because your children are younger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like of course, my twins.
And it's such
oh,
a
yeah.
fine line.
Oh,
Because
it
of
is.
course, like
Oh, it is.
with Preston, I decided to homeschool him because, he has Tourette's. He has a physical
Sure,
tick.
sure.
And, apart from learning, bullying was a concern.
Sure.
But at the same time, like it's I mean, and you have a good point, but there is such a fine line between like preparing them for the
Yes.
real world
Yeah.
and then protecting them while you can.
Well, yes, because you have to when they're
Yeah.
growing up. When they hit about 12 or 13, you can sit back and go, I did my damnedest. Like I
Yeah.
did my best to route you on here. And really your job is to say, where you check it. If you're leaving somewhere, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, hell, if they live under my roof, you check in with me every 2 hours. I don't care. Nowadays, you have to do that.
Yeah.
But you can't go to the school and say, oh, my kid's failing math, and it's because you don't like him. Kid's failing math because my kid's failing math. And
Right.
I don't care if you don't like the teacher. I don't care if the teacher doesn't like you. I can't step in and save him from that. But
Yeah.
you're damn right I can step in and save him from life and death situations. You will
Right,
check in
right.
with me. And you're right. When we were kids, we'd have cell phones. You know what I mean? Like, we were out running the streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a commercial that made our parents
Check
remember
in.
we had kids.
At 10 o'clock, do you know where your kids are?
At 10 o'clock, do you know where your kids are? My
Yeah.
mom's like, nope.
Well, and then it
like-
was like, come in when the street lights come on.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell, Keith.
No, you can't, because coming
No way in hell.
Now you're getting kidnapped, sex trafficked. You're getting fentanyl laced drinks. You're getting fentanyl laced drugs. You're getting no, you can't. You can't do
Right.
that anymore. It's every 2 hours you check in with me. Period.
Yeah.
Period. And that's okay to do that as a parent. That's okay to be a dictator as a parent.
Job.
Oh yeah, Jacob used to tell me, "Oh, well, this is a free country." Yeah, it is.
Your son
Outside-
said that to you?
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. Outside those walls, outside
Yeah.
my house walls, it's a free country.
Yeah.
Inside, it's Keithtopia, and I am the president. Like,
Mhm.
I will no, like, you will do what I say,
Yeah.
and I would never. That's the thing that you got to watch now. Don't do anything. I would never tell my kids to do anything that would harm them. Like,
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I would never put them in harm's way. Some parents do,
Yeah.
and that wasn't like that. I'm sorry, it was not like
Well,
that.
and the
when we
whole
were
like
kids.
gentle parenting. I'm not a gentle parent.
Right.
It's
The other thing is, there's times for gentle.
I can only
parenting.
if my parents try to gentle parent me, shit.
I would spill milk, and my day would be ruined for months. Like, you don't.
I
know,
borrowed
like,
my mom's hairbrush and then she beat me with it to
Oh,
the
yeah.
point where it broke.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I never did it again.
100%. Yeah, you don't exactly
For a
right.
hairbrush.
And like and there's gentle times for parenting. My son's has a girlfriend. She's very nice, very nice.
son
I
has a
love her.
girlfriend?
Oh yeah. And they're serious. I mean, they're talking about colleges. He's 16. They're
He's
talking about
16?
yeah. I'm 38. I was like, I'm old. I'm almost
Hmm.
40. I'm pushing death's door down, man. But like,
I'm so sorry that you're so old.
dude, I ate greasy like pork the other day, and I'm still in pain. And I looked at Tyler and I was like, I never thought I would say that. Getting old is weird,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
But when you have kids, it's even worse
Yeah.
because they make sure you're getting old.
Oh yeah.
Like Rizzity and Skibbities and all these other
Oh yeah. Yeah.
caps and fax and printers and
Mhm.
no prints and all this other crap. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
My
But-
son tells random strangers how old I am. It gets he really gets a kick.
All right, that's funny.
Yeah.
I like that. But gentle parent, like if he, when his girlfriend breaks up with him, now's not the time to be a jerk to him. It's to, be nice about it. It's console him for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then let him know like it happens. There's things, people
Life
drift
moves
apart.
on.
Life moves
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That's the gentle parenting. That's corrective. But if you come home and you started a fight with some kid for no reason, I'm finishing it. The kid doesn't have to. I am. I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure you know that that's not okay.
Yeah.
But you're gonna defend yourself. Like if the kid starts to fight, the knocks teeth out. Like,
Because
I'm good
parents
with
want to
that.
be friends with their kids.
Correct. It's
They
not-
don't want to be the parent. They don't want to be the bad guy.
right.
They want to be friends with their kids.
Well,
and I feel like
yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
and you can see that like that obviously that type of parenting look at what it's doing. It's
Sure.
causing the schools to feel like
100%.
they have to step in, and then we get mad when the schools step in because the schools are going to step in a way that is, in my opinion, very harmful.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
obviously address those things with Annie. So
which was great. Which was great. So we're gonna have next show is gonna be very well too, very very well planned out. You got some stuff
Yeah.
going on, so
a lot of stuff going on.
which is great. Which is great.
Well, I mean, it's great that we have a platform to talk about it.
Sure.
But just to kind of like to gear that up,
Yeah.
so people know when to come and tune in, we are going to be discussing what's going on at the Brecksville School District.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, there is the school nurse, she was a nurse aide, was
Yeah.
just sentenced for 2 years for theft of medication and tampering with medical files.
2 years.
That's it.
Mm.
And she was stealing stimulants from kids that needed to take them at school, and she was giving them Lexapro instead.
What's Lexapro?
That's
don't
an
know what that is.
antidepressant. It's an
Antidepressant.
SSRI that you can't even take before the age of 12.
So
And we're talking up to like fifth graders, and it was going on for a while.
so 2 years.
That's it.
for poisoning.
So they didn't even charge her with it.
possibly- They didn't charge her with it.
They only charged her with theft of drugs and tampering with medical files. She was not charged with assault, child endangerment, nada. So I have some pretty well, and you want to know something crazy? These parents didn't even know that their kids were given Lexapro instead until yesterday
Oh no, I would be
at sentencing.
I'm telling you right now, at sentencing.
At sentencing is when the judge finally forced her to say, dude, my inbox today,
Yeah.
my phone was just ding, 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 ding,
Next
ding.
show is going to be amazing.
Yeah. There's
It is.
a lot of big things that we're going to address, and a lot of very upset people for a lack of support from the school district.
Unbelievable. Guys, we need your help to keep doing what we're doing. So please subscribe, pass it around, share it everywhere. We're giving voices to people that don't have voices, or we're giving platforms for people who have voices to have a louder voice. That's our goal. Please subscribe. Please let us know if, what topics you want to hear us discuss, what topics you want to be at the forefront. Guys, tides have changed. Things have changed a little bit, and we have the freedom of speech to disagree with whoever we choose to disagree with in a very civilized way. And I think
And we welcome the disagreements.
Hell yeah! If you're a liberal and you got balls, come on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put
Absolutely.
you on. It'll be fun.
To be civil.
Oh, yeah, it'll be civil. You'll be a Republican by the time you're done, but yeah, it'll be civil.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't go with that.
we're all right with that too.
Next time, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, we need your help. Please pass it around, share it, subscribe. We have some of the best audience and fans in the world. It's amazing. We're getting a lot of support already, and the fact that we're getting these great interviews shows that people are willing to speak out. They're willing to get their feet
Yeah.
dirty, just like they said they were. We're
Yeah.
starting to hit a time where activists are becoming activists. They
Mhm.
need to, and that makes me happy. That's what this country was founded upon.
Right.
So God bless you guys, and an awesome interview with you today. That was
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Very, very informative. I look forward to seeing everybody next Thursday.
Awesome.
Elevate your cooking with Big House barbecue spices. Whether you're grilling with our barbecue bee dust dry rub, dipping bread in Italiano herbs, or adding kick with our sweet and spicy blends, our spices are perfect for home cooks and professional kitchens alike. Crafted from premium ingredients, they enhance everyday meals and elevate gourmet dishes. Transform your weeknight dinners or create signature flavors for your restaurant. Taste the difference with Big House barbecue spices today.